What's up, the internet? It's me, it's Kyle. I'm back. We're back. This is part 3 of our posted anniversary celebration here on The Experience. We are joined now by a person who I always am excited to talk to because I really do love reading his book. So I always want him to tell me stuff. So hopefully he'll tell me some stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, Marvin Wynn from The Edge.
How's it going?
What's up, man?
What's going on? It's a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh. No rain yet. Well, it rains every day here, so
Well, so I'm just a few hours east of you or west of you.
Yeah.
And looking out the window, I don't see any headed your direction. That's not to say it won't happen.
Yeah.
Because we've got like these big lakes and rivers that cause it.
Right.
But at the moment, it's not like there's any preparing.
Cool.
So, first of all, can you give everyone... The Edge is my favorite book from Second Sight.
Appreciate that.
I love kind of your take on the superhero kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you give everybody the pitch on what the Edge is?
Sure.
And the story there?
Yep. So the Edge is a drug that gives special abilities at the cost of your life. So our story starts with the character Revenant, who has been dosed with the Edge, knows the secrets of the Edge, but he's not going to tell anybody because I consider him to just be a jerk. So he's a former assassin for the government who goes rogue out into the world. And they're not really concerned with him telling people. They're more worried about someone capturing him and getting a sample of his blood. So what they do, they send a strike team after him to take him out or to bring him back in. And then one thing that we do with this book is we don't tell you who the bad guy is. We don't tell you who the good guys are. We kind of let you figure out what's going on because there's lots of shades of gray, and a lot of the characters are going to do things that might not be above board because it's all about survival.
See, I always kind of look at Revenant as I don't want to call him an anti-hero.
Yeah.
But kind of that he's not a great guy,
Mm-hmm.
but also like he has reasons for not being a great guy that totally would make sense to not be a great guy.
Right. Like, I mean, if it was wrestling, he would be a tweener. He'd be the guy that's on the fence.
Mm-hmm.
But I like it. I like it that people really like the character. He's just not a good person. And I mean, later on, we're going to show you why he's not a good person. We're going to dive like later on in the book, we're going to dive more into his backstory and show you some of the dastardly things he's done. But at this point in time, you're trying to kind of like see why he's so frustrated and wants loose out into the world. But at the same time, you're like, God, that guy sucks.
Yeah, no, that's the part I'm waiting for the turn because I've read a lot of comics and we've talked before and you kind of told me this that it's coming and I'm waiting for that turn so I could be like, okay, now I get to find another character in this awesome story to root for.
But so don't get comfortable with that character because we might turn them too. So
right, no, that's why I love this concept. Right, is it's somebody you start to feel might be a little heroic or might be a good guy could just very quickly snap and be on the other side of it, and it gives you almost a Doctor Whovian ability to extend the story, right?
Right, because you never know who's on whose side or who's going to flip sides or like, is that person really with me? I mean, we might have the same goals, but where they're going maybe not be where I'm going. We might be in the same car going to the same trip, but I want to go over here and they want to go over here. So you never know. Right. Like even the people on the strike team, you don't know who they are. It's just this team that was just thrown together and put into a situation where, all right, go get this guy.
Right. So what led you to becoming a creative?
I always point to the image revolution as something that really piqued my interest back in the 90s because it was a thing that showed me and and a lot of people that I've talked to from around that time, like Alfred Page and a few other people, where you didn't realize that there were things outside of Marvel and DC. Most of the comics I purchased were on a spinner rack, and that was most of what was on there. It was Marvel, DC. It might have been a few Dark Horse books, maybe some Kamiko, but everything was Marvel, DC. It was all your Spider Mans and your Captain America, your Avengers, your Justice League, your Superman, your Batman. And when those guys formed Image, it was a wake up call to say that, hey, you can do this. You can go out into this world and do your own thing. You don't have to be beholden to the bigger companies on the story that you want to tell.
And so, how did that help bring you into the idea of making your own comics?
Well, I mean, I saw the.
Did you always want to make comics?
I would probably not. I don't think that. I mean, I didn't really wasn't. And I was more into animation, so I was more GI Joe, Robotech kind of person. And then I was introduced to comics from GI Joe. So it was GI Joe, and then they showed the commercials because GI Joe was the only comic book that had a commercial. And you would see that, oh, join the action, continue the action with GI Joe. And then I started reading GI Joe, and GI Joe led into Avengers, into X-Men, and the Justice League and things like that. And it was just the visualization, because at times I wanted to do novels, but then it was just the being able to visualize what these characters were doing and also have the story behind it, which really was interesting to me and wanted to go into comics.
Do you remember your first local comic shop interaction? Like, what was the name of the shop? Do you know, is it still there?
Yep. The stores, it's not in the same location it was in. Well, it is and it isn't. So it's Phantom the Attic in our what's called our area called Oakland, which is pretty much our big business and school district. That's where University of Pittsburgh is. And that was my first time being in a comic shop. I didn't know comic shops existed back when I first started reading comics. Because, it was spinner racks for me. Spinner racks at the Five and Dime, Murphy's, and then the spinner rack at the local grocery store, Giant Eagle. So when I was introduced to comic stores, now it was a whole new world of back issues. So it was just getting new issues off the spinner rack or off the newsstand. And all of a sudden, I can go backwards in time and get books. And then you start filtering through and like, oh, well, this book is like this book, so let me check this one out too. And then it just blossoms from there once you have a place where you can not only see the new stuff, but old stuff and get trade paperbacks and things like that, just to open that entire world to you of going all the way back to a #1 issue of something that came out 30, 40 years ago.
So how I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question without like leading you to the answer, I guess.
Okay.
You mentioned GI Joe.
Mm-hmm.
GI Joe is a story that in a lot of ways had, looking at it now through today's lens, has some similar traits to the Edge in terms of GI Joe aren't always the best guys.
Yeah.
Cobra is not always entirely wrong.
Right.
I mean, mostly wrong, but not always entirely wrong.
Right.
How do you see those influences coming through in your work today?
I think it's a lot that, like you said, that it's the humanity of the character that we're really trying to push forward in the book, is that you're not always going to make the right decision in any situation, because we're not perfect. We're not perfect beings. And sometimes you're going to make a decision that not only hurts other people, but may hurt yourself. But is it the decision you're making to get to that goal that you want to get to? Is it right or wrong? I mean, it's always right from your perspective. Like you think about it like a character called like Cobra Commander. Things were right to him from his perspective because he wanted to rule the world. So if I want to rule the world, I need to do what I need to do to rule this world. And he'll always say that I'm not trying to rule the world to make things bad. I'm trying to make them better.
Right. Exactly. I mean, and it's sometimes G.I. Joe was a little heavy-handed in the way they dealt with Cobra. So he had a legitimate gripe. Like, I'm not trying to be a Cobra apologist here. I'm just trying to say that sometimes G.I. Joe may be shot a few more times than they needed to. Or, But no.
blew up a few things. I mean, but you have to think about it. Like, you have to think of all these planes they're shooting down over populated areas, and eventually one of those planes, and it happened in the show. If you remember, plane crash landed next to a person's house, and then they had to do a rescue mission to save that person. And then the person got mad at GI Joe, not Cobra. He didn't want revenge, right? So, and
Right,
it's
that's
that kind
exactly
of thing.
it.
Like, you don't know what the consequences of your actions are, and that when you're fighting these battles, it's the collateral damage that sometimes that you have no control over that's going to cost you later on.
Right, absolutely. The we kind of have already touched on it in terms of it can go on for a while. How
Mm-hmm.
far out do you have the Edge planned?
So when
Is there a level of? Go ahead.
I think that when Mark and I were first working on it, we originally thought 25 issues is how far we would go, and we kept coming up with so many ideas for where the story could go, and it just kept compounding itself. So the one thing that we always say is that the story is about escalation, and how, like you were saying, consequences always going to be the stead of the story, and you can't stop if there's always consequences to something that's happening. So you're expanding the universe out, all four directions, and there's always going to be that one thing that you had touched on. I think we're going to try to touch on it. So we're looking right now at just going as long as people are interested. I mean, we're having a lot of fun doing the story. From what I'm hearing from a lot of people, yourself included, is that you're enjoying it. So I don't want to just cut you off and say that, oh, we're done, and move on to something else, because we're just having so much fun with these characters. And we just see so much stuff. It's like when I talk to Mark and he sends me new art and he's like, oh, let's try this, or let's do this uniform, or let's see what happens if we do this. And it just gets the wheels turning in my head to say that, yeah, let's do that and see what happens.
So do you have a project that you're like? Do you have another project that you're thinking about or that you're working on?
So we've got about 2 or 3 other things that we've talked about that we want to do. One of them is something that will directly come from the Edge. Another one is a horror book, and then there's another one we want to do about time travel. So there's things on the burners, but I mean, like I said, that I don't like splitting focus. So
Sure.
I'm doing Edge maybe 5 days a week, and then doing little bits and pieces of the other stuff like 1 or 2 days a week.
I like that. I like that it's you don't. I like the idea of not splitting focus, but I like the idea of just kind of carving out some time to be like,
Mm-hmm.
I got these other things I'm working on, so when they're ready, we'll go. You know.
Yeah.
How is that balance for you in terms of, are you I have to write X number of words a day kind of
Mm-hmm.
guy, or are you I write what comes to me, or what does your workflow look like?
Most of the time, it's time. So I'll give myself a set amount of time every day to either do some promotion, do some writing, taking some notes, talk to Mark, talk to the guys at Second Sight, talked with my writers group and things like that, just to make sure that I'm spending some time uh, not goofing off and playing video games or something when I should be doing that kind of stuff. So I put myself on a timer and say that at this time block, at this day, I have to be doing this, or I put myself in like a timeout where I say that, okay, since I didn't do this, I can't play a video game today. I have to punish myself to make sure I do what I'm supposed to do.
I have an ADHD diagnosis, and it's the same for me. It's like, if my brain can find something else to do other than the thing that I absolutely have to do, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do that other thing.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've done recently is I've stopped listening to digital music.
Mm-hmm.
So if I can listen to it on Spotify or iTunes, I can't listen to it at work.
Yeah.
Because I'll lose 2 hours just skipping songs until I find that one perfect song that I want to listen to, or I'll look at my phone and I'll pick a song, and then I'll go over and I'll open up Pokemon Go, and next thing I know, I've been playing video games for an hour and a half.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know,
So I mean, that's
so
why there's only I only have 2 games installed on my phone, and those are the only two things I play. Because if I start playing, like they have all those Marvel games, and they have the squad game, and if I start playing that, I'll get sucked into that for hours, and it's one of those things where it has energy, so I'll be playing it until I run out of energy. I'm like, no, stop it, get off this game, because I just like uninstall it, because I'm just going to sit here and play it.
It's true. It's super true. My Switch, the thing that has actually helped me be most productive recently is I took my record collection into work, and in my studio is my record collection and turntable. It's so cumbersome to change the music.
Yeah.
When I need to change the music, that it forces me to focus on my work.
Yeah.
So, as a self-driven kind of creator, you have to do all of the stuff. Like, you write the book, you market the book, and I'm sure, and Second Sight certainly helps.
Yes.
But you are still the frontline guy on it.
Yeah. I mean, no, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, absolutely.
No, ask your question, and then I'll jump in.
Well, I was going to say, what are some of the things that you've been doing and that you've seen work for you?
So last year, I took it upon myself to create a contact list, which contains nearly 2,000 stores in the United States and about 150 international. So what I did was I gave that away freely to anyone who wanted it. And it has contact persons, email addresses, phone numbers, where the store is located. So what I did was I just freely contacted every store that I could possibly contact. So that's either email and phone call, and gave them my entire spiel on the edge, where things are going, what's coming up. And there was a very, very good response back from the stores on saying that, oh man, I'm so glad you contacted me. Going through that catalog, it's so huge that I would have missed the book. And it gave me so much more motivation to do those things. Like every book release now, I'm contacting stores. And now that we've gone monthly, it's almost 3 weeks after the one book is there, I'm doing this all over again. And it's become such a routine. And I've gotten to the point where I've made really good contacts with that. So now I can do mailers, because generally you don't want to mail anything to a shop if they don't know it's coming. Because that's not going to reach the person that you want it to reach. It's probably going to end up, oh, I opened this, what is this, in the trash. So now that they know these things are coming, it helps a lot to do marketing in the store so that the customers know what's coming up from the edge and also from Second Sight, because we're not only displaying our stuff, but the logo and information about the company itself.
Right. I love that initiative. I talked to David Pepos yesterday, and when I had my retail location and he had Spencer and Locke Volume 1 out, he sent out an email. Mm-hmm. And it was, retailers get a lot of emails from creators. And usually it's just, hey, here's my book, buy some. It's very rare that it's anybody is following up after a book has been successful and just checking in and kind of giving you the spiel ahead of time of what the thing is and how it's going to go, and giving you a playbook for it. Mm-hmm. And so I love the initiative, and I love the way you approached it. And I think it's super commendable that you shared that with whoever wanted it.
Yeah.
Because it would be really easy to take that data and be like, mine.
Yeah. Or charge people for it, or say that, hey, slap me $5 through PayPal, here's the list. No, I mean, and the reason why I did it like that, and the reason why I continue to try to assist people who need this kind of help, is that no one helped me when I started. It was almost like there was a lock and key with the information, and no one wanted to share it. Back then, this was back in the Miracle Online days, when everyone was was printing through Quebecer and things like that, going to Canada. Mm-hmm. And then you had a big boom of all these other printers coming up, and everyone was trying to scramble to figure out difference between offset and digital printing. And no one had a guide for that kind of stuff. No one knew about CMYK and RGB. So I mean, it's one of those things that I wanted to gather all that information and share it freely with everyone, because you never know who that person is who's struggling with this kind of stuff and will give up because they don't know. And you don't
Right.
like, you want as many people in the pool as you can get in there. You don't want people to quit because they can't figure out how to do that one little small thing that is stopping them from getting their book done.
Right. Absolutely. I think, like I said, I think it's so commendable for sharing that and for taking that initiative, because you're right. It's not like there's a book you can go buy
Mm-hmm.
that tells you, okay, this is who you call for printing. This is what your color, your color breakdowns need to be. This is what your bleeds need to be. This is what your, format, and like, I think that's so commendable. How has working with Second Sight helped and influenced the way you approach uh, marketing and then selling the book, like as a creator?
Well, I think those guys, Bradley, Marcus, and Spike, have been like really instrumental and a great inspiration for me on how they were doing their things even before becoming the Second Sight. And they've been a big help to me in getting information out to, not to the stores and all that, but also to the printer and also to Diamond itself. I mean, I really thankful for them with getting the book into Diamond, because I felt like that we reached a plateau with reach. Before we joined Second Sight, we were getting places, but not, it wasn't enough, and it felt like that we were spinning our wheels in the mud. And honestly, with trying to reach out, because a lot of stores, when I contacted them previously before being down, they were like, "Oh, yeah, it looks good, but you're not in Diamond." Or, "When you're in Diamond, contact us." And it gave me great satisfaction to reach out back to those stores and say, "Hey, we're in Diamond. How many are you ordering?"
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just those little things that, because we do have a group chat, and those little things where we go back and forth on things, or people are showing what they have coming up and what the cons are happening, just to help motivate me and say, "Hey, maybe I'll try something like that," or maybe they'll see something that I'm doing and say, "Oh, that looks like a good idea. Let's do that."
Yeah, I know there are a lot of stores who are hesitant to take a shot on an indie if they're
Hmm.
not in Diamond, because the amount of time it takes for that store to solicit that book to its customers, market that book to its customers,
Hmm.
the amount of rack space it takes, and getting in Diamond is sort of proof of concept. You don't make it to Diamond if you're not going to, if
Yeah.
the book's not going to pan out.
Right.
So, or very seldom is that the case, I suppose. It has happened.
Yes.
Um, how what's it like to know that retailers are seeing your book uh, in the catalog and ordering it, and that people are buying? Like, I've never asked this question of a creator before,
Hmm.
but what does that feel like to you, like emotionally?
I would say that it was one of the best feelings I've ever had doing comics, I want to say. But besides that, the first time holding the book in your hands, the second most is having someone contact you out of the blue and saying how much they love your book. Or to be on streams like this, and people are in the comments saying, "Man, I love the edge. I love the edge." And just that feeling that someone cares about something that I created and think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell people that it's good, but that doesn't mean anything coming from me. I'm biased. But to
It's
have other people who don't know you just say, "Hey, man, I really love this book. I can't wait for the next issue." And then once they get to the next issue, they're like, "Oh man, I can't wait to see what Revenant does to these guys." People, they love Revenant. They love that guy.
right.
And it's just so much appreciation for the community and how they embrace me in this book as we've gone along. And they keep trying to get me to talk Mark into coming onto streams, and I'm working on it. Eventually one day I'll talk him into coming on to one of these streams and sitting down and having a talk with us, and hopefully bring the rest of the team on too, so we can all have a panel discussion on how great the edge is.
Right. Or a panel discussion on how much work the edge is and why it's paying off.
Right.
What are your plans like going forward? Like, we've just come through this really weird year.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Mm-hmm.
How did that affect the edge? How did that affect your publication schedule?
Yeah.
And then how are you planning going forward? Have you done any conventions this year? Are you doing any more later?
Yes. So we've done 4 conventions this year, including Terrificon. So we went up to Massachusetts for Terrificon. We've done 3 in Pittsburgh and then Terrificon, and we've got cons coming up for the rest of the year too. Also, next year, I mean, I'm hitting the road next year, so I'm doing Free Comic Book Day at Empire Comics next year. I'm doing MegaCon next year, hoping to do C2E2 next year, and a few others. So I mean, I'm not only are we finishing out this year strong, hopefully, if nothing else comes along, but next year will be good for us too. But as to answer your question about what 2020 almost killed the edge, I'll say that. Because like I tell people is that we were on issue 10, publishing on our own. And we were getting ready to do a release party at the New Dimension. They're one of the biggest comic shop in Pennsylvania. They have 6 stores, I believe. We were getting ready to do a release party at the local store here in the waterfront. And the manager of the store called me and said, we can't have people in the store. We have to cancel your release. So I actually had copies of issue 10 that we were getting ready to release, and I couldn't do it because it was panic mode, and I felt people were losing their jobs, that people were worried about what's going to happen next, and I didn't feel it was right for me to release a new issue. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, this could be it. I was getting ready to send Mark an email saying that we're probably done. I mean, we probably should just pull the plug now, wait a little while, release issue 10 and call it a day. And then I end up talking to Spike Jarrell, the submissions manager from Second Sight, and he said that why don't go submit the book. So I ended up submitting, and they accepted it, and it gave me new life because we actually had a brand new version of issue 1 that was redrawn and recolored that we were just sitting on. That I was trying to figure out what to do with it. We were originally going to take it and put it into a new trade, but like, just go ahead and re-release it, issue 1 again, get it bouncing, because now it's a brand new audience. So we can't just go, here's issue 10, good luck finding the other books that were published other places or published through us. But I mean, it was I would say that as bad as 2020 was, it was almost a blessing in disguise somewhat for us, because it gave us brand new life with this book. And as for where we're going, we're planning to do something really special once issue 4 is out. I'll talk about that later. I don't want to reveal that just yet. But what I am going to be doing is something I'm calling From Script to Store, where I'm going to go over the whole entire process from beginning to end of getting a book from the script into a store. So it's going to be the scripting, talking to Mark about the art being finished, handing it off to Luis to do colors, handing it off to James to do the lettering, and just the whole entire process and all the blood, sweat, and tears that we endure going through that entire process as we kind of do checkbacks and say that, no, that doesn't work, let's try this instead. Or me trying to figure out how something works, and then Mark just grabbing his pencil and saying, let's just do this, and just changing the whole entire panel that I had. And then me looking at it and go, oh yeah, that works better. Mm-hmm. So I just want to open that door and show people what the process is, and just show you that it's not just snap your fingers and done.
Right. Oh, absolutely not. What conventions do you have booked out for the rest of the year? Just if people are going out and they're doing them this year, where can people see you?
We've got this coming weekend, we're doing Memento Con, that's in downtown Pittsburgh. In October, we're doing Three Rivers Comic Con again. That is I'll be outside down in the waterfront in Homestead. We've got Steel City again in December. That's in Monroeville here in Pittsburgh. We've got a small press one in Ohio. I forget the name of it at the moment. And there's a show
that I'll see you at that show. That's
yeah.
I'm gonna blank on the name of it too now.
Yeah. We'll put it in the description later.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got another one in Massachusetts, and we'll see what happens with that one. That's in November. So, it's always weather permitting for things like that, but we'll see how things go. But like we've got, I think that's 5 more shows from now until December.
That's cool. Like I think that's a good schedule, and we're just gonna hope that everything happens. Right. I'd hate to see another shutdown. I'd hate to see more cons get canceled.
Well, Herrenberg's in the chat. It's space.
Yes, thank you.
So Herrenberg and I, we do cons together, and he does a live action female-led superhero series called Herrenberg, which I do second camera, and I'm a character on the show. I get beat up a lot by females because they have powers and I don't have any powers, so I get beat up a lot. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's something different that I've never thought I would do, and being an actor, air quotes, on the show, and it's just so much fun. He also has a comic series, 2 issues out of Herrenberg. So I mean, and that's just a testament to just trying different things and just seeing what's fun. I'm like, it's fun. It's just fun doing things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Herrenberg, I wasn't gonna do this on air. I know you hit us up to be on this thing, and we're working it out. This event got a little jumbled around. I've had some health stuff happen, so we kept it a little smaller. Don Wynn is in the comments. Hey, Don. I am, but so back on track here with the important stuff, which is the Edge and comics.
Yeah.
Not our inability to remember the names of things or. If you could only work on one project that you've got kind of in your wheel, in your quiver right now, I guess is the word I'm going to use. Like, if you only had one arrow left in your quiver, which project would it be?
I mean, it has to be the Edge. I mean, it's I would say it's my baby. It's something that I've been working on since like in the early 90s, and it's something that's always going to be in the back of my head, and something that I'm going to want to cherish and keep really close to the vest on, and make sure that it's taken care of and fed properly.
Cool. I ask everybody some questions that they can't possibly be prepared for.
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask the first one now. If you were on a desert island or trapped in traffic, because I know how traffic in Pittsburgh is, and you could only listen to one record for the rest of time, what would it be?
That would be Michael Jackson's "Beat It."
All right.
The "Beat It" album is amazing album. I mean, it's just so many good songs came out of that album, and it's such an amazing accomplishment to have so many hits off of one album. It's just incredible.
It's true. I have a Quincy Jones tattoo, and that is maybe Quincy's finest masterwork. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
As a producer. So, but we'll go back to the desert island. If you could only read one book for the rest of time, what would it be?
So I think my favorite comic book has always been probably X-Men, because of the diversity of the different types of characters that the book has. And probably my favorite storyline from the X-Men was Fall of the Mutants. Just because of one scene where Angel was harpooned against the wall through his wings. And it's one of the reasons why I do some of the things I do in the Edge, where you have this amazing gift and it's taken away from you, and you go to rock bottom, and then you try to figure out, how do I get back to where I was? And that's one of the things that goes through the Edge is we do that to one of the characters where we say, "You're done. Now do something about it."
Yeah. And that cover that you're talking about too, where that's one of the most memorable X-Men covers of all
Yes.
time too. And then still on the desert island, you can only watch one movie. What would it be?
Infinity War. Even though it ended on a bad note, it's just so an amazing film, and I love that they were able to make the villain the focus of the movie because
Yeah.
you had already built up the other characters so much that you didn't have to give them any arcs. This Thanos arc is the Thanos is the whole entire protagonist of that story, and it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can't watch Infinity War without immediately watching Endgame after.
Yeah.
I always equate it as to only doing half of your math homework and expecting
Right.
full credit.
Right. I mean,
that is certainly a two-part film.
Yeah, but it's funny because we were sitting in the theater and we were getting ready to leave, and most of the people sitting there were bawling their eyes out at this movie. And my aunt turns to me and she goes, "Is that it? Did 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 they just end it with the bad guy winning?" Because even going up to that point, you're like, "Oh, they're going to stop this guy. He's not going to get all those gems." And then he has all the or stones. He has all the stones, and he snaps his fingers. You're like, "Wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. Bad guy doesn't win. What's going on?"
Right. Right. Absolutely. As a writer, is there someone outside of comics that you would say is a big influence on you as a writer?
I would say that probably Stephen King, probably, and it's not for the book that people would think. It's The Stand. I think The Stand is something that really influenced me. Again, it's that you want to say the drug, the disease, or whatever it is that's decimating the planet, and people are choosing sides, and then it's war. And you know that in any situation when people have to choose sides, there's always going to be that battle that's coming because one side has to dominate the other side. So it's always going to be The Stand for me. That is probably one of the biggest influences in the way that I want to craft a story.
I like that. I like that answer, and I bet a lot of folks would say that Stephen King has a big influence on their writing, especially people who are working in comics these days.
Yes.
When you look to the future of the comic industry, you're an independent guy. Like you're with an independent publisher, a creator-owned publisher. You've been making your own book, yourself. Do you feel like the creator-owned and the independent style is the future the way it certainly appears to be right now?
I think it is, and I think that that's kind of a question that we could probably talk about for hours. And that you see the way that the bigger guys, the Marvels and the DCs, emulate the way that the creator-owned process happens. But at the same time, you're still dealing with billion-dollar IPs that you only can take things so far before they pull the reins and say you can't do that because we need this character to sell this movie. But this is why even at DC they formed what is called Black Label for that kind of stuff. And I would think that Marvel is right there in that. Well, they did in the past. They had their Icon. I think it was Icon before. Yeah. And I think
Marvel
that,
Edge, they had Marvel Knights.
Yeah. And I think that that's where you need to position yourself, is that you can have your big IPs that are selling your movies, but you need to have those stories where someone who doesn't want to dig into 60 years worth of data to try to figure out why Spider-Man made this decision this week because of something that happened 60 years ago. You can't handcuff people like that where they have to go and try to find that story or try to figure out where this other character came from. You need to be able to have balance in those stories to be able to tell it in a way that you can bring in that new audience. And at the end of the day, people are going into those comic shops for Marvel and DC, and then discovering those other books that are on the shelves. So you have to have those Marvel and DCs in those stores just to get people in there, because you're seeing a Spider-Man movie. There's no Edge movie yet. Maybe there will be, but Spider-Man is going to get someone to the shop so they can find the Edge.
It's true. Okay, if there was an Edge movie, who would play the Revenant?
That's a good question. I mean, I've never done fantasy casting for the Edge before, because it's something that I try to keep on the back of my mind, so it doesn't interfere with when we're writing a story. And I say we try to avoid the, hey, make them look like this person.
Okay, what type of actor? Like,
so I mean,
would you like to see it played by a type A kind of leading man, or do you think the Revenant is more of a undiscovered kind of commodity type actor? Like,
yeah,
I know you do some acting, so you know what I'm getting at.
Right. I would think a like you said, a type B, someone who is not big in the limelight yet. Maybe someone from a TV series that is trying to get into that mold. Someone who hasn't done a lot of stuff. I mean, because you want the Revenant to stand out and not just be like you look at a Fassbender, and he's in so many movies that doesn't it kind of take you out of the movie? So, oh, here comes Magneto.
I have that with other people for sure. It's or for instance, when you know somebody from a comedy, and all of a sudden they're in a drama, it's, oh hey, why is Bill Murray from Ghostbusters in this serious movie right now?
Right. So I'll give you a perfect example of that. Do you remember the show, the Jimmy Fox show?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember the nerd character Braxton?
Vaguely.
Yeah, the guy who was the goofy guy who worked in the hotel. He was in the movie where he played a gangster, and you're watching the movie like, come on, man, that's the nerd from Jimmy Fox. He's not no gangster.
Well, I'll give you a prime example. I have a hard time with Jordan Peele, being serious, because in my mind it's always the guy at the end of the substitute teacher bit. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah,
it's just because that was, that, or the guy from the East-West Shrine Game football player names bit. Like, he's so forever tied to Keegan-Michael Key in my brain that whenever those guys go do something serious, it's like this. Nope, can't do it.
Yeah, like when the Twilight Zone, you're like, no, man, say something funny.
Right. And conversely, when somebody who's like a serious actor shows up in a funny role, Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I'm struggling here. So I get you, man. Like, it's, I that's why, I think I like the idea of not fantasy casting because it keeps you from changing the process of creation.
Right.
But I love the idea of typing, what type would we like to play? So, nobody thinks of, nobody really thinks about type. They just go, oh, I want him to be Vin Diesel or whatever.
Yeah.
Pick a guy. You pick a type of person. So.
Yeah. So like you said, it's the type B. It's that guy who's just trying to make it. Not someone who just showed up at the coffee shop in Hollywood trying to get into those roles, but just that guy who's been on a few TV shows or has been a bit player in a movie that needs that breakout. Somebody like that.
I like that. So we've got a few minutes left here. Where it's been on screen at the Edge comic. Yes. But where can people find you? Where can they buy the Edge directly from you if they can't get it at their local shop? how can they support you as a creator?
Right. So you said like it's at the Edge Comic. That is my link to my Instagram. I am on Twitter at Marvin Wynn because someone has the at the Edge Comic and it's been sitting on it for a long time. On Facebook, it is at the Edge Comic. So if you want to purchase the Edge, I have an Esquid store where I have the exclusives that are coming out. I believe it is the address to that. I can tell you.
Well, in just a second, just so you guys know, in the comments on the video, wherever you're at, there will be a link to Marvin's link tree.
Oh, yeah.
Which will take you to all the places. So
yeah, I
on that and go to all the places.
Yeah, I found that easier than the trying to spell out things and somebody's like sitting there like, oh, let me hurry up and write this down before go back on the video. Is to make that link tree and then just have people click the link tree because that'll be the easiest way to get to where you want to go. So we actually just started working with Loose Collector. They used to do customs and now they're doing full-fledged action figures. We're working with them right now to do a G.I. Joe scale Blaine action figure. So that is up for pre-order right now. So we're going to do a few months of pre-orders and then we're going to do a Kickstarter, Indiegogo or something like that to bring the other characters to life.
Do you have a crowdfunding preference? Do you prefer one over the other?
Since I've never done one, I will not say. I mean, I am of the mind that why not do, if you're going to do it, do both. I mean, get all the options that you can and see what happens. Like eventually you'll shake that tree and pick one or the other, but I mean, why not try all of them if you can?
Yeah, I didn't realize you hadn't done crowdfunding before.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You're one of the few independent creators that I've talked to recently that haven't. At this point, it's almost so ubiquitous.
Yeah. I mean, we want to do one, but I didn't feel like it was always the right time because like my friends are doing one, so I didn't want to like pull any stats away from them or anything like that. So I mean, it has to be a coordinated attack to me, and we're going to do one, I believe, for the trade, but it's going to have to be something special because we can't crowdfund something that's going to be in stores. So it has to be different cover, more pages or whatever. So we're going to do one. It's just going to it has to be something that we build up to, and it has to be something special. I just don't want to do like crowdfund every issue or anything like that. Not saying there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way that we think about when we do the book.
Right. As a retailer, I can tell you one of the things that I like when people crowdfund their books, especially their trades, is if I can get them signed.
Yeah.
Because I can't get them signed from Diamond.
Yeah. So I sign anything if people ask. Like they come up to us. We have people come up to us during con because we were at Steel City Con. They have a lot of celebrities in the back room, and it's $60 to sign this. I think somebody was charging like $200 to sign a pop or something like that. So they came up to the table. They were like, "How much do you charge to sign?" Like, charge? I'll sign for free. I'll sign anything you want. I'm not going to charge you to sign anything.
Yeah, no, like I said, I always loved it. I back a lot of Kickstarters at the retailer level, literally just for signed book plates or signed copies, because now that's something that I can give to my customers at cover price. That's a benefit to them. That's a bonus to them. So, and it helps the book get funded and kickstarted, and then I go back and I order my inventory through Diamond for the long term.
Yeah.
And it works out really nicely. When Jenna has been asking everybody a question that they can't be possibly prepared for, and I'm going to modify it because when she asks it, it's funny. When I ask it, it's weird. If you could only eat one type of dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That would be apple peach cobbler, and I will say that since it had to be made by my grandmother. My grandmother's no longer with us. I probably won't ever have dessert. So it's my favorite thing in the world, and I haven't had it in years, and it feels bad because it was so good, but it is.
Right. Well, but it's because it's made by grandma. Like
Yeah,
My grandma
exactly.
can make a cake mix from a box, and it tastes
Yeah,
better than if anybody else makes the same cake, makes the exact same way, because
because
it's
she
grandma.
puts grandma's seasonings in it. That's why.
Right, exactly. Grandma pancakes are always better than
Yeah,
other people
yeah.
pancakes. I don't understand it. So, if you could give one piece of advice to a creator that's out there watching right now,
Mhm,
you've been working on the edge a long time. You've pushed it for yourself for a long time. Now you're with a publisher and you're kind of restarting it
mhm.
and giving it a second. I'm going to call it a second life, but
Yeah,
it's really you're just giving it a recharge.
yeah.
What piece of advice would you give to that guy out there who's still slugging away and doesn't
I
feel like they're making it?
yeah, I would say stay the course, and you're going to fall a lot. And I fell a lot in the beginning when I was first, because like I was saying, is that I had no help, and I stumbled and I tripped and I fell and I got up and I dusted myself off. And the best piece of advice that I was ever given and I will give is that it's not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up. And as long as you're standing on your feet, you can still accomplish your goals. So even if you fall a few times, don't give up on the thing, because you never know. I'm like, it could take years. And a lot of people will tell you that it's not an overnight thing. It could take 10, 15, 20 years, but eventually you'll get that breakthrough, and you'll think back and you'll think that, man, I'm really glad I kept getting up and getting all that dirt and dust off of me, because now I'm here and now I can enjoy it.
Awesome. I the question of the future, I
Hmm.
keep looking towards the future. I keep looking at the next step in the
Yep.
industry and the next step. So, how are you preparing and adapting for? You said you had a big thing coming out for issue 4, and I'm not going to ask you to say any more because you want to, keep that under your
Yep.
hat,
Right.
surprise people. But how are you preparing and adapting for such an uncertain future right now?
Yeah. I think that your best bet as a creator is to get those email lists on point. Get those newsletters on point. You need to be able to communicate with your customers, because, like I said, that there's not a lot of space for advertising in your local stores. So man, they're going to put up your Marvel and DC posters. So you need a line to your customers to make sure. So at the cons, it's like, sign up for my mailing list, sign up for my mailing list, sign up for my mailing list. I'm putting business cards whenever I send packages to stores. I'm putting business cards in it. Please hand these out to your customers. We're going to do it. Like I said, we're going to do a mailing campaign pretty soon for issue 5, where we're going to give enough for them to give to their customers, and have them sign up for newsletters. Like, you need communication based. So I think communication is the key to the future of comics, and making sure that even if something catastrophic happens and stores close, that you can still reach your customers and let them know that you're still out here, and that they can. And if they find a new store, if they want to, or they want to order online, they know that the book is still being published, because it's like you said, you're getting a little bit into that mode of, how do I let people know these things are going on, and that email list is a powerful tool.
I like that, and I have to send you my official The Experience email. Make sure I'm on that list for
Yep.
doing stuff like this.
Yep.
Um, one more time, we just got a minute left.
Mhm.
The Edge Comic on all the socials. The link tree is in the description. Um, what is the single biggest thing someone out there who's watching this could do right now to help you continue to create the edge?
Get those pre-orders in through Diamond. I mean, that tells the stores and that you are really interested in the book. This past week, I know a lot of people missed the FOC, and their stores didn't put orders in. So now then they had to do reorders. So I mean, get those pre-orders in. Uh, check Hook up with me on Facebook, on Instagram. I'm always willing to talk to customers and fans. Hit up the Edge website. That's theedgecomic.com. If you want to buy some exclusive stuff on there, I mean, I've got books up there right now. I'm going to have more up there as exclusives come in. I'll be putting them up there for people to purchase. I sign everything for free, so I mean that's sort of fun. This recently we did a exclusive for Rod the Rican, his YouTube channel. They sold out really fast, and I included a print for free, and I had to sign 200 prints. So I took a whole entire afternoon.
Buying a house.
Yeah, it's like Marvin Wynn, Marvin Wynn, Marvin Wynn, Marvin Wynn. It's just like, okay, now the hand. I had to do like this before I did it to make sure the hand was strong, so I could do 200. So like I'm not afraid to do 400 if I have to.
No, but it's in those moments where you wish your mom had named you Ed, right? Giving you a short name.
Well, no, I don't sign Marvin Wynn. It's Marvin W. Everyone else. So I saved myself a couple letters on there.
When I first got into media, the first thing they taught you was never sign your name so people can read it.
Yeah.
Because then you'll just be signing autographs at an event or whatever because they think you're famous and whatever, and then they're going to try and find you on social media and ask you for stuff. So I no longer sign my name. I actually have an official mark.
Yeah.
And it's the dumbest thing I've ever done, but it saves me so much time. So, Marvin, I want to thank you for coming in. I love The Edge. Like I said, it's my favorite book at Second Sight. Don't tell Bradley that it's not his book. Marcus will see this later and he'll yell at me, but I'm fine with that. So, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of this. It's been fun, and yeah, absolutely. Anytime we can, I'll see you at Space in Columbus for sure.
Yep. All right. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right, guys. That was Marvin Wynn from The Edge at Second Sight Publishing. We will be back in just about 2 minutes with a person who likes to be called America's Tom Zahler. I'm going to ask him about Canada's Tom Zahler and see what he says. We'll be back in just a few minutes here on The Experience. What's up, the internet? I continue to be Kyle. I am joined once again by my partner in crime for this weekend, Miss Jenna.
Hi.
And we are joined this hour by America's Tom Zahler.
Hey, how are you?
Very good. He puts that first word on there, and I've always wanted to ask. So, Tom, are there international versions of you? Like, is there Canada's Tom Zahler and a Uruguay's Tom Zahler or
Ireland's Tom Zahler?
There is an Ireland's Tom Zahler. Yes.
Ooh.
That's me, because I am part Irish. Yes, I would like. I haven't met the rest of them, but it's like Batman of the world.
I love it. So, for anybody watching who isn't familiar with Love and Capes, why? Why aren't you? You've made a mistake. But tell them about the book.
So, Love and Capes is a superhero romantic comedy. It's about a superhero who says, I love my girlfriend and I'm going to tell her that. But if I tell her that, I have to tell her everything. So, is there ever a good time to tell your girlfriend you have X-ray vision? What does she want for Christmas when she knows you can crush coal into diamonds? And just this very week, it got nominated for a Ringo for Best Humor Comic.
Nice.
Yep, that was going to be my next thing. It's Ringo nominated. So, how does and I know Baltimore is a special convention for you. You know, I know you and Christy talk fondly about Baltimore. So what is that like? How do you feel after the nomination?
This is the first time I've been nominated for a Ringo. I was nominated for the Harvey Awards once or twice before. It means a lot, especially coming in at I think this is the 5th year of the Ringos. It's pretty close, but maybe the 3rd. But it feels like, just from a math point of view, that it's easier to get nominated when nobody knows about it. So the more people know about it, the more people are voting. So the more heft it takes to get in. So it means a lot that I could get in. I was friends with Mike, not super close, but we knew each other professionally and through a couple of groups. And he always had a sense of fun and whimsy in his comics. And it means a lot to me to be nominated for the award named for him.
And I will say that I, as a industry professional, I quite like the Ringo Awards because I get to vote. So I can support my friends in this way, whereas some of the other awards, it's a little more nebulous as to who's voting for what.
Yeah, so, I say that the Ringos are kind of like the SAGs, the Screen Actors Guild Award, where other actors are nominating each other. So kind of the same way, like other professionals are nominating each other. They have a really cool way of having judges that can be weighted in, and a large mass of people, like anyone can vote to nominate, but the actual nominations have to be voted on by the pros. And I think I think it is a unique blend that gets you people that you wouldn't get noticed by other awards. Like there is an award in comics that has said that, for instance, My Little Pony will never be nominated because it's a licensed comic, no matter how good Katie Cook did on it. Mine were okay, but hers are great. And I think with something like the Ringos, you don't have that sort of corporate mentality that keeps anything from breaking through. Like 2 years ago, it was Batman Elmer Fudd, which is just this insanely awesome comic that shouldn't ought to be. And I feel like other places would not have recognized it for the comic it was.
Right. Absolutely. So what led you to become a creative?
Oh, I was dropped on my head a lot when I was a kid. So severe head trauma is really, really important.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does, because you don't want to be sane and get into this. That will only hurt you. Aside from actually doing a head out of a shopping cart when I was 2.5, my parents used comics as a reward system, and I was reading from a stupid early age. My dad was actually Machiavellian in teaching me how to read. He would do phonics books and do 3 pages with me and then stop, so that I was always saying, well, Dad, let's do more. He's like, no, we'll do more tomorrow. And then freaking taught me how to read at like 2.5. So I love comics from the beginning, and that became like the reward system. So they had a really well-behaved kid, and I had a lot of comics.
That's the best reward system ever.
Right? Especially like I hate to sound all old and stuff, but 70s, 80s comics, when there were a lot of done-in-ones and a lot of like weird stuff, and there were reprints of stuff in Super Team Family and like bizarre Justice League issues, and like it was just such a great time to pick up comics, and there was so much in them, but they all felt complete. They even things that were part of a story felt like you read a complete story, and I don't think there's as much of that now. Like on Halloween, if I'm home, because I tend to be at conventions a lot, I will give out comic books along with candy because I'm not a monster. And it's becoming harder and harder to pick up comics at the store to be able to give out. You're like, oh, this issue of Batman's kind of not appropriate. for 7-year-olds. Yeah.
Mm.
So
They Diamond did bundles a few years ago of
Mhm.
like Halloween Comic Fest books.
right.
So they were all ages books that were specifically, and they're smaller and they're samplers. And I ordered so many of them, I'm still giving them away. And like some of these series have come and gone and ended, but you're right, like that's a killer thing to put in somebody's like Halloween bag, like just a comic book. Like they love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I do feel like in the 70s there were less guideposts. Like Justice League was always, for the most part, all ages appropriate, but you could still find your way to, or better yet, Spider-Man and Captain America were all ages appropriate, and you could find yourself to the X-Men, which was written for a different age group, but it wasn't so written for a different age group that you couldn't find your way to it. Where now, like, if you're reading the Batman animated comic and you like that, there's no other comic in that world to go to next. Like, it is in its own sandbox. Right. And then if you're going to go to different versions of Batman, you have to learn what that version of Batman is.
Absolutely. I mean, I like to say that I came up in the 80s and 90s before there was safety. And it's the same that, it was definitely the same for comics. Like I was reading Preacher way younger than I should have been reading Preacher because I was able to find Preacher from other stuff. Like
right.
It wasn't like somebody's like, "Hey kid, you should read this really jacked up book." It was, well, that's the Vertigo logo, and I see this other Vertigo, that's DC. Should be fine. And my dad's like, at least he wants to read. Let's buy him this book. And then we get to like the 8th panel of the first issue where it's an angel and a demon, doing it. And dad's like, okay, just don't tell your mother. So I love that idea that, you came to comics because comics were there and that you found all the different ways in. Where did the story for Love and Capes come from? Where did the concept come from?
It comes from lots of places because I have a deep and abiding love of sitcoms. I like romantic comedies. But some of it came about when Superman got engaged in the 90s. And I think there were production reasons for it, but he got engaged and then 7 months later told her he was Superman. And it seems to me that you need, like, when you get engaged, you should leave everything on the table. Like, oh, I'm Catholic and I'm scared of spiders and I fight crime. Like, that should come out and you shouldn't hide it. And I kind of think they did it because if the reaction was so negative, they would be able to walk it back. They could break them up without having to reveal the identity. But it kind of came from there. And I thought it was really interesting to do the point at which a superhero decides to open up and trust his significant other with the secret, because it's this huge trust issue. You have been lying to them for a long time, but there's a good reason why you're lying for them. But are they going to see that as a good reason for you to lie to them? And and then there's a whole, if you live in a world of rock stars, you date someone who's normal, that right. person is going to be thinking, why are you with me? Like you live in this, if Brad Pitt comes to date you after dating Angelina Jolie and Jennifer Aniston, you do kind of wonder, like, but you're in that world. Why are you in this world? And I thought that was interesting to play with too.
Yeah, no, I love that your three things were I'm Catholic, I'm scared of spiders, and I fight crime. They still haven't addressed the whole space alien thing.
Well, he's not a space alien. He's actually human. I've never said how he gets his powers, but
I was talking about Superman.
To his mother being pregnant with him.
Oh, I was talking about Superman.
Oh, Superman.
Well,
Yeah,
she already knew that. She knew, like, you're like, oh, I'm Superman. You've done all of these interviews. I'm an alien.
Yes, exactly.
Right, but like,
but that's a lot of conversation
about, like,
yeah,
is it all the same? Like, you need to have that conversation.
Yeah. I got engaged 2 years ago after 10 years together, and he still was like, by the way, my family's from North Carolina. I was like, okay, well, that's why I can't understand when they talk. I got you now. Yeah. Okay. Wish I would have known that sooner than 10 years.
Right. So, Love and Capes has been around a while now. How long have you been doing it?
I think I started in 2005, technically, but the first issue came out publicly in 2006 because it was released at comic conventions before it went to Diamond. It came out the same weekend as Superman Returns.
Well, there you go. That's a good way to remember it. Because I remember the first time copies... I can remember the first time we started ordering copies for the store. And it was a little later than that, but we carried it pretty regular through Diamond up until we closed the store. And I remember thinking that this is a great book that mom and dad can get and that a kid can consume, but there's something for parents too. Like it's very Shrekian in that way, where it's you know, the kids love it because it's a superhero story and it's funny and it's light and but also there's some real stuff in there that appeal to the little bit older audience that they're like, okay, there's something for me in this book too.
Yeah, it's something I considered because it was part of Free Comic Book Day for a few years. That was the biggest thing that got it noticed. And you're supposed to be kid appropriate for Free Comic Book Day. You don't have to be kid friendly. Like, it doesn't have to be written for kids, but it has to be written so that if kids read it, nobody's going to freak out. So it's got to be broadcast TV. It can't be HBO. And that sets you up for, it gives you certain guidelines for what the book is about. And I think that, yeah, it's still bright and colorful and hopefully it's funny. I mean, my goddaughter read it from far too early in age too, over and over and over. And I would every once in a while throw in a joke that she probably shouldn't have read. But on the other hand, if you get my double entendre, that's not my fault.
Right. It's Animaniacs going, did you search for Prince? And one of them comes back with Prince. Like it's it's a little over this pay. It's a little over this age group, but okay, I get you. This year, I think, was the first year that rule was gone for Free Comic Book Day. They actually had 3 different banners for MA, all ages, and YA.
Did they? Okay. I was at My Little Pony convention for Free Comic Book Day this year, so I didn't get to.
You had a better time. You had a better time.
I'm going to say I did. At a My Little Pony convention, I'm a left-handed pitcher, and at a comic book convention, I'm a great utility infielder. Like at the pony convention, they got me a handler, and I kind of want that at every show I go to now.
Right.
At one point, I was going to go to the green room, but I had to go to my room first and drop something off. And my handler said, "Do you want me to have a drink ready for you when you get to the green room?" I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I used to dress up as Pinkie Pie.
What about Pinkie Pie?
I used to dress up as Pinkie Pie. Me and my friends did the whole ponies as equestrian girls, and we went to the local children's hospital that's here. Excellent. And my hair, I would have sugar-free candy in it, just in there, because I couldn't get the cupcakes to work.
Okay.
I always pulls out cupcakes. I couldn't do it, so I pulled out sugar-free candy that the nurses okayed.
It's good that you went to that extra effort to check that, because I would hate to see you walking around with essentially sugar bombs in your hair and good work.
But it was so much fun.
So, how far out do you have kind of Love and Capes planned?
6 pages.
All right.
Literally, in this case, 6 pages. So when I do Love and Capes, I did the first issue to stand alone. And once I did the first issue, I said, well, if I do one, I'll do 6. So for me, every 6 issues is a season. There's always an arc to it. And so it was their dating year, their engagement year, their newlywed year, their first year with a kid, and then we jump ahead 5 years, and now they have 2 kids. And I knew how that season ended. And then what I started doing, kind of to process a lot of stuff that was going on, because you may have heard there was a pandemic. I did Love and Capes in the time of COVID, which is on Patreon now. And that is dealing with the heroes going through the pandemic. I had a backup plan to get out of it if I ever needed to. But I just thought it was interesting to deal with all the universal stuff that we've had to deal with. Like not so much dealing with the problem itself, but for me, like my parents took it way too casually at the beginning. And it's not like I think you have to be perfect and clinical and, but I just wanted them to take it like, again, I'm Catholic. And that first week that things shut down, the Catholic Church said, you don't have to come to church this week. And that never happens. And my dad said, well, I went to church. I'm like, why? Like, stay home for the novelty of it. Like, this never happens. Like, you're 78. You're the age group I'm worried about. So those kind of universal things, I thought there was enough interesting stuff to go on, and especially dealing with superheroes who would have to be out in it. And, I found reasons to, which heroes would be vulnerable to it, which heroes wouldn't, and all that kind of stuff. So I have that plan through page 48. Like, I know roughly how this issue ends, and then I actually don't know what happens next. I need to have that 6th issue planned out before I can aim for it, but I'm going to figure it out pretty quickly because the two things going on is there's a lot going on with Darkblade and Amazonia and a lot of the background characters that's really interesting for me to deal with. And 2, now that they have 2 kids, there was a very clear arc for their son because their son is about 6, and I knew what I wanted to do with that. Their daughter is like between 1 and 2, depending on when you're reading it. So she's more furniture than she is a character at this point. And I want to do something that is unique to her, because once she starts talking and once she starts interacting and developing more of her personality, like, I need to, just out of a sense of fairness, make sure that the other kid gets enough attention too. As you can tell, I grew up in a family with 5 brothers, or 4 brothers. I always think of the 5 of us. So I want to do that, but I don't have that figured out. But usually when I start 11 Capes, I'll have 6 issues planned. The only reason I don't on this one is that 11 Capes was as much therapy and figuring out how to replace comic conventions and a lot of the income that I was losing. So that's what allowed me to launch the Patreon. Because once I had a structure in place for me to launch a Patreon, then I knew how to do it.
So you mentioned Patreon, and I'm going to come back around to Patreon, but you also mentioned being a left-handed pitcher in the world of bronies.
Yes.
Which is great. I love that scene. I am not a participant in the pony scene, but I love being around people who are, because they're some of the most joyous fans ever. There isn't a cynical one. A cynical one amongst them. They just love it. What is that world like as a person who's like, you told us our stories?
So I don't take any fandom lightly. I think there's a temptation to do it. I mean, I even see it with, years ago I had this epiphany about San Diego Comic-Con where people would complain about going to it. And I'm like, but if the worst part of your professional life is when you have to go to San Diego for a week and talk about the thing you love most in the world, it's not that bad. Like, yeah, it's a pain to ship all that stuff, but it's not that bad. And I'm a Star Trek fan, so I'm used to socially awkward people who like something a little too much, which is mostly how I've dealt with the My Little Pony audience. Because I came into it mostly mercenary. IDW was publishing the book. They were publishing 11 Capes at the time. And I said, could I do a cover? They said, would you like to pitch the book? I said, I'm not an idiot. Yes. And then I mainlined the show. I was surprised. It was a much different, much better show than I thought it was. And it became really easy to pitch for, and I identified with the characters. And it's a loving, passionate audience. And I've had some of the most incredible experiences from that. The one that I talk about sometimes is I was at a show in Calgary, and this one kid comes up and is talking to me, and again, likes things too much. The conversation's going on a little long, and you're starting to have thanks for coming by. You're like, I'm Catholic and I can take a lot of punishment, but it's just going on, and you're trying to figure out where to draw that line. But I stayed with it, and he walked away, and then his mother comes up, and his mother says, my son's autistic. he doesn't speak. And I just watch him talk to you for half an hour. And when that happens, like, that keeps you in check the rest of the time. Like, I'm so grateful and honored to be able to be part of something like that.
Right.
That it keeps you from being too arrogant or too dismissive or anything like that with anything else that happens.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I did BronyCon one year. I mean, like, and I did it because I knew that it would be a good time because everybody was going to be there to have a good time. At every other convention I've ever been to, there's somebody who's there that's like, all right, I'm going to get over on every dealer I can get. You know what I mean? But no, that's not how those conventions are.
Mm-hmm.
Those conventions are, we love this thing and we just want to celebrate it. And right, you have interactions like that. People who are, you might be the only person they talk to that day or at all. And you just, that fills your heart. You're right. You know, it just,
yeah.
So, what are some other things, how do I ask this question and not sound like a dummy? Do you have other stories? Do you have other stories? I can't do it.
Okay.
I can't do it. I'd have to prepare. And even then, I'd probably sound like a Dalek. But do you have other stories like that of conventions where it's, hey, you're, Loving Capes or My Little Pony or anything else where it's people have come to you and kind of told you how it's affected and changed their life? And once you have those stories, how does that affect the future creation of the project?
I have had more of those. The other one that comes to mind is I did a comic for Webtoon that's not collected called Warning Label, which is about a girl who's cursed by her ex-boyfriend that every guy who asks her out gets the warning label of what they need to watch out for. And there's a guy who stays with her and he writes a warning label of his own and they slowly become better people. And someone came up to me at a New York Comic-Con and she was crying because she told me the book made her a better person. And like, my problem is that growing up on so many 70s and 80s sitcoms, like I just want to be Jack Nicholson and it's as good as it gets and go, I overshot the mark. I was just trying to get you not to leave. But I can't, I'm never going to take that lightly. Like, it was just an amazing experience. Like it doesn't affect what I'm doing because the story is the story is the story. If the story's right, the story's right. It's got to be true to itself. But what it does is it gives me guideposts for interacting where I just, like, I've been on the other side of the table. And there's always a point where, like when you go through one of those lines to get your photo taken with one of the actors, like, it's not that I think I'm going to change the actor's life or we're going to bond or, Tom Cavanaugh and I are going to hang out and get coffee. But it's just, you want that one moment where they know that you're in the world too. And kind of, like, I'm very, like, nobody can come up with, okay, don't test this. For the most part, nobody can come up and trip over their words and just babble. And I'm going to be gracious about that because I would want someone to do the same thing for me. Like I got to meet Patrick Stewart from Star Trek. And I mean, fortunately, I've been planning for this moment for 20 years. And I only had a couple minutes. And I got to say, obviously I love being in Star Trek. And your favorite thing that you've done for me is LA Story. Because nobody talks about him in LA Story. And I just love that. And he's like, that was quite some time ago. And that's all I needed. And I took off. But like, it doesn't, it's the kind of thing that, especially being in a convention and you're like, it's like being on a first date for 4 days and you're trying to be personable. And it's the thing that keeps you from going off the rails and just being the bitter guy behind the table. Because when when some 9-year-old's coming up to tell you about My Little Pony, or some webtoon fan is coming up to tell you about this thing, like, you know how important it is for them. And I've been in that situation too. Like, there's no bad way to tell me you like what I do. Like, I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, I don't know how to say this without being super arrogant, so I'm just going to say it. Like, it's like that scene in Superman 2 where Superman catches Lois in the elevator, and she's freaking out. And she's like, Superman, there's a bomb in the elevator. And he's like, I know. I got it. And that's what I wanted. Like, when you're, when you can't get words out, not forming complete sentences, like, I'm going to help you through it because I've been there.
Got it. Yeah. I've never been starstruck per se. I mean, from a young age, like right out of high school, I was working with people who would be considered celebrities until I met Alan Alda.
Okay.
And I could not form English words. It was just sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan Alda's like, so you're a fan. And it clicked. And I was able to then explain to him how a certain episode of MASH led me to learn improv and learn acting and led me to the careers that I've had. And it's all back to one episode of MASH.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an episode he wrote and directed and starred in. And so, like, it's his fault I'm here. And, but it took him de-escalating the situation from this huge thing for me. And so I appreciate that. But, like, and I love the fact that you said the story is the story is the story. If the story's right, it's right. I wonder, is it hard for it not to become something you aim at?
Hard for it to become what? I'm sorry?
Not something you aim at.
Yeah, I don't want to
turn it a little into. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to preach. Sometimes I know the audience I'm aiming for, like when I'm working on My Little Pony, but I want to find the one true thing to talk about. And once I do that, everything kind of falls into place. And I'm trying to avoid writing the very special episode of anything. I want to write something that's good and that people get stuff from. And I think it's, there are so many universal experiences that we can talk about and explore, that you don't have to reach too far. And like the show that is currently I'm obsessing on it. It doesn't know I exist, is Ted Lasso. And on Apple TV, and it's just awesome. But that show is the show we didn't realize we needed, especially during the pandemic. And because I don't want to spoil it, because it's a magical show. But the dart scene, and when he says, "Be curious, not judgmental," that scene is everything. It's in the middle of this story about a guy who moves to England to play soccer, but that is one of the most amazing, important, challenging things that I've seen in a TV show. And it's in the middle of this comedy.
I have to talk about this because every time somebody brings up Ted Lasso, I love that the guy who's responsible for Ted Lasso also brought us Spin City and Scrubs and Cougar Town.
Yes.
Like, it's
Cougar
all
Town
Bill
is
Lawrence.
Vastly overrated. Underrated, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. It's phenomenal. But then what's crazy is that 3 of the first season episodes of Ted Lasso are directed by Zach Braff, who was stuck in London because his girlfriend was shooting Black Widow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's all so tied to this thing. Yeah. Like, he went to London because his girlfriend was shooting Black Widow, and then the pandemic happens. And he's like, well, I'm stuck here. Oh, hey, Bill Lawrence has a show here. I wonder if I can get work. Like,
life finds a way.
Right? Well, I was going to say, sitcoms find a way. And it's true. So, we've been asking everybody some similar questions, because one of the things here on the Experience we try to do is highlight the local comic shops.
Okay.
Do you remember your first local comic shop experience and what store it was and where?
Comics and collectibles
there,
at the Shoregate Shopping Center.
Is it still there?
Run by a guy named Ed Music.
Okay.
Yes, I was there every Saturday and then every Friday night. I had a pull. First place I had a pull list. First comic I started getting regularly was DC Comics Presents, the Superman team up book. It was the first place I saw that had comic. It was the first place that was just a comic book shop.
Do you know, is it still around?
It is not. I think Ed has gone through the post office and retired, but I know people who work for him, including Mark Andreyko worked at that shop. That's where I met Mark.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Mark actually went to school out here and had my aunt as one of his history teachers.
It's a small world.
It is.
Very.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was the very first one. There are more in town since, and I tried to be very accommodating. Sounds wrong. I try to make sure I stay in touch with them and work with them because they're so important.
Right. Talk to me about Patreon. We had Jarrett Whalen on yesterday who does a Patreon. We had Tom Hutchison, who Big Dog Inc. has a Patreon. You said Patreon was a way to kind of deal with the pandemic and the shutdown of cons and that kind of stuff. But how has the Patreon kind of model affected like the way you work and the way you create?
It's given me a different pacing, I think, because with any system like that, I need to, like in my head, I need to figure out how it works or how I can make it work. Like I understood what Kickstarter was, but I had to think of a project that I could do that would work for Kickstarter. So the same way with Patreon, when I realized that Love and Capes is built on a 2x4 grid, so that's 4 panels and a joke, 4 panels and a joke or a beat of some sort, that I could put up a page a week, which is slower than I normally do on Love and Capes, but it wasn't like I wasn't doing other stuff during the week. And it was a manageable goal to say, okay, I'm going to do 1 page and patrons at one level get the page, patrons in another level get behind the scenes and there's sketch of the week kind of stuff and lost stories, and it builds up from there. But figuring out what kind of paradigm I was going to use to put stuff up there, because so much of it is I'm going to do this thing on a regular basis, and it's hard. I've had experience with that with the webtoon model where you're putting stuff up once a week, but you also have to make it a manageable chunk. Like I could turn out essentially 10 to 12 pages of comic, 5 to 6 pages of comic a week to do webtoon, but webtoon was also giving me money. So it was harder to figure out how to do it for Patreon because you're not assured of how much money you're going to get. So I started smaller. I'm going to figure out something past that, and then it's got to be based on it. It's based literally on the whole mercenary. How much money am I getting on this that I can devote to it? Because I want to make sure that I'm hitting the deadlines and saying that I'm going to do the thing that I'm going to do, but I also know how much money it brings in, and I have to make sure that it's taking up an appropriate amount of my workday. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I put the link in the comments, so
you.
You can click that right now if you're watching, and go over and back Tom's Kickstarter or Patreon. It's been a long weekend.
Oh,
So
my brain just blue screened of death just now. It was real bad.
I keep having little moments of like reboot, just like what?
Yeah. So Jenna and I are into our 15th hour this weekend.
Has it?
And yes, no, it's more than that.
Yeah, because it was from 10 a.m. to midnight yesterday, and then I was on here at 10 a.m. No, 9:30. Time.
Yeah, time is a relative construct. So we're gonna keep moving and go on to the next thing. You do a lot of conventions. I see you at a lot of conventions. I know you do a lot of conventions. Is there a convention you can't wait to get back to? Not because of the convention, but because of the food after the convention.
Oh. That's tougher. Because there's a dinner I have at Baltimore, but that's probably the people. Dragon Con is definitely the drinking. Yes, Chicago. I had to think through it, like which one. But Chicago has Pizzeria Uno and Pizzeria Due. I love Pizzeria Due. It's got Tony Montoya's, and it's got Ghirardelli chocolate. So it's
good.
And it's a driving show for me. So I will make sure that I get out there early enough on the day before the show that I can go have lunch and then go have dessert.
Well, speaking of dessert, I have the most important question of the day. Are you ready?
I'm sitting down.
So I've asked this all day today because we actually have a house of pies here. If you could only eat one type of pie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Taking a pie filled with $20 bills off the table. I'm gonna say apple, specifically like was it French apple with the crumble on it?
Like an apple strudel?
Not quite a strudel. It's just got a crumbly top,
like a Dutch apple.
Oh, okay.
I will take Dutch apple. I was over at my aunt's house for lunch today, and we had apple pie.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes, so, most important.
Mm-hmm.
What conventions do you have planned out for the rest of the year? Where can people run into you?
I have a stretch coming up where I'm doing 7 shows in 8 weeks.
Yay!
So that 8th week is Thanksgiving, so I'm sure that will be a break.
Is the 8th show San Diego?
Excuse, what about San Diego?
Is your 8th show San Diego?
It is not,
because that's Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, I'm currently not planning on doing that. They haven't sent us anything about doing it. I love my space at the San Diego Comic-Con, so I want to make sure that I'm being clear about this. I question some of the decisions that they have made in that show.
I just am trying to find somebody who is going, so I could talk to them about preparing for a show.
As far as I know, they haven't released the information for how to go to that yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen a single thing for anything.
Yeah, and I think, like, I used to do Mid-Ohio Con, which hands down was my favorite convention, and that was a magical thing that took place over Thanksgiving weekend, but also it was Saturday and Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend. So, like, you could still have Thanksgiving on Thursday, travel on Friday, have the show, and it was this perfect experience. Having a 3-day show where you have to travel on Thanksgiving the year after not being able to see people, like, I think there's going to be a lot of inertia there to overcome.
Yeah.
So, the shows that I'm doing.
I miss Mid-Ohio so much.
Oh God. Yeah, I just had lunch with Roger Price a couple days ago. And he appreciates it when people tell him how much they miss the show, and he's going to say that no, he won't do it again. But I think it's also kind of a lightning.
Never ask him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No.
I completely understand why he's past the point of wanting to do it.
I have lunch with Gibby at the Ogre once a month, and we always talk about the good times at Mid-Ohio, and we always talk about how great it is that it doesn't exist anymore for the people for whom Mid-Ohio was their entire year.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness!
You know, so what do we got? What do we got coming up? I got to stop reminiscing.
I'm going to be at Dragon Con next week. I'm going to be at Cincinnati Comic Expo, and then New York, and then this is where it gets crazy because those are not the 8 shows. Because then it goes. I might get the order wrong, but it's going to go Baltimore, Denver, Grand Rapids, theoretically Homedale, New Jersey, Grand Rapids, C2E2, Emerald City. I know I'm missing one in there, but Bayou City in Houston, which is mid-October, first part of November. So
Yeah,
that's all I have planned.
That's all.
Yeah.
My October, I'm only home 11 days in all of October, and I thought that was a lot. And then you just told me that, and now I feel like a schmo. So
No, you're far smarter than I am. No, this is a stupid schedule. I have made several mistakes.
You're gonna feel like a schmuck
well,
by the
right. I added one before, so I'm doing the experience will be at Oxeye MediaCon in Saginaw, Michigan, the end of September. After we're at Monroe Pop Fest mid-September.
Okay.
Then I am at the International Edgar Allan Poe Festival in Baltimore.
Oh wow! Do you all go in the same gutter?
Of fun. Kinda, actually, yes. Because the festival is in the street where Poe's house was.
Okay.
So kinda, yes. But then it's home for a day, New York, home for a couple of days, Columbus for a week because that's how it's going to work out for my nephew's first birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Home for a whole week, Traverse City for Cherry Capital Comic Con.
Okay.
And then some time off, then Grand Rapids, and some time off, and then CP2. But it's like your show schedule I'm envious of. I love doing that kind of stuff. Like that's the stuff I live for.
Are you insane? No, it's more.
I love
yes, I am.
So
I am. I mean,
I see the problem that I run into is that I would love to be paid to be Tom Zahler, but I have to make things too. So it's hard to go from doing the show to going home and making stuff to sell at the show and then doing another show. And there's not a lot of I'm kind of at the point that if I get home, as long as I wake up in my bed at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm okay. But if I come in at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, that day is shot. It's just going to be me unpacking and watching Netflix. Like I can't get back up to speed. I try not to rely on too many crutches, but there are things that help you do work.
Sleep.
Like my coffee in my studio and stuff like that. So I try to get back as fast as I can, but like turning out a weekly comic is hard when you're at your Cintiq once every 3 days.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky when I go on runs like that. It's me with a book bag, a camera, and some microphones. Like as long as I've got a laptop and an internet connection, I can work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little different.
Yeah, I've gotten really good at getting a lot of stuff done on the Cintiq. Well, not done, but I can get it like almost done. So when I take it here, I can ink it. So like I can do tight pencils, but I can't make the iPad look like my Cintiq does.
Right.
And then relevant to your comment about the book bag, I feel like every time I leave a city, I just hear the Incredible Hulk music as I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
So what do we have in the future? What do you have planned out? What other projects do you have that you're working on?
Did you not hear the 8 conventions?
Well, I mean, in terms of work.
Yes.
In terms of non-traveling, convention-related work, do you have plans for new things for 2022? Because it'll take you till then to sleep off the conventions.
Yes, I am planning on doing more Love and Capes. I don't know exactly what comes after In the Time of COVID, but I've got about a month and a half to figure it out, and it'll come to me.
In the time where COVID came back?
No, COVID's gone. I ain't doing this again. I don't like drawing masks on characters. It's hard to get the expressions.
It's all about that eyebrow work.
Mm-hmm. And then I was getting irritated drawing, the mask around their neck. And a friend of mine, Joe Murray, pointed out that they should just have the magical Marvel costumes that just disappear and fade. And then I did a whole bit about that where somebody invents it and the Doctor Strange character is like, that's not how science works. No, that's not how it. So I'm going to be doing more Love and Capes. I'm figuring out how to do more Cupid's Arrows because season 3 is not going to be on Webtoon. So I'm like, the current plan is that I'm going to do one a month on Patreon and do slightly less Love and Capes, but throw in Cupid's Arrows, because I have more of that story I want to do, and I left it on a horrible, horrible cliffhanger. So I apologize for that, but I know what I want to do with it. So I'm gonna go on from there. I've got a couple things I want to pitch or are being pitched that I can't talk about. Yeah, and past that, it's just conventions and commissions all the way down.
Cool. If you could give a piece of advice to you starting in the industry, what would it be?
Learn how to do taxes and put more money away for retirement. I'm not sure.
That's a real good answer.
Yeah, that's the best answer.
When I talk to kids who want to be artists at my table, I tell them, look, you know to take art classes because you're not an idiot. Take speech class and take accounting. Because you need, like, especially in a world with like Kickstarters and Patreon, you need to know what those numbers are. Like, how much will it cost you to make a book? How much does it cost you to ship a book to a convention? Because if you're going to do this as your living, you need to know that stuff. And I have to be able to speak to editors to pitch things, because you don't want to just go, oh, I got the story about Metro Time Traveling Winery, and you probably won't like it. So you need to be able to express, because I've known people from art school and beyond who, like, I don't like talking to people. Okay, well, this is going to be harder than you think.
Yeah.
Like,
once they hire job in advertising.
Yeah. Everybody's on the phone for things. You got to know how to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just texting. Those would be the big thing. Like, I think that would be, maybe start earlier. It's hard to figure that one out, because when you go, like, I went freelance in late 2001, completely freelance, and I probably could have gone a few years earlier, but I don't know that it would have felt right about it. Like, because when you go freelance, you're accepting the fact that sometime you're going to wake up at 3 a.m. and questioning every decision you've made. And when you're in that position, you have to know, I totally put myself in this position. Like, this is where I want to be. You don't want it to be, oh, that me from the future kind of talked me into that. Bastard. Like, I've had people who ask about it. I'm like, you will know when it's time, and it won't feel like you went soon enough, but that you don't want to wait too long, but you don't want to go too quickly. Because I tried being freelance immediately after leaving the Kubert School, and when I worked this summer doing caricatures at an amusement park, and like, it just wasn't feasible. I wasn't getting enough work to make it happen, and I wound up working in an ad agency, and that was great and a great experience. But you need to know that you're where you're supposed to be, because otherwise you're just going to question every other decision you make, because you won't feel confident about it.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, I went freelance 6 years ago, doing this kind of stuff, freelance media consulting and freelance kind of broadcasting for people. And right, it felt like I should have done it earlier. And then I got that first tax bill and realized I didn't know what I was doing yet and should have waited longer. So it's an interesting kind of conundrum to be in.
Yeah,
sure.
I had a number in my head that I thought that I needed to be making to go freelance. And there was a point when I felt like I couldn't hit that number as long as I had a day job, because apparently I have to sleep. And I made the jump, and it turned out when I ran my numbers that year, I had passed that number by the point I decided to go freelance, but it doesn't feel like that. And it's
right.
I've had people say they couldn't do what I do because they don't like knowing where their next they don't like not knowing where their next paycheck's coming from. And I tell them, but you don't know what your next paycheck's coming from. It's just that I know what my boss is doing about it. And I like that control, but it doesn't, it doesn't always feel awesome all the time.
Right. I mean, my boss is making me work from a hospital this weekend. Like, he's kind of a jerk, but also he's going to take me to New York Comic-Con. So, like, trade-offs. So it's one more time, tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can find you, where they can hand you money
Yes. You can give me money just about any way you want. I take kidneys, whatever you got. I am at Tom Zahler, THOMZAHLER on Twitter and Instagram. Tom Zahler Cartooning on Facebook, and patreon.com/Tom Zahler. You can also go to tomz.com, THOMZ.com, and that'll take you everywhere and show you everything I've done. That I admit.
If you see him walking down the street, just throw money at him.
I don't know. That's got a weird. It's got a weird vibe to it. I don't know. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, you're right. So, the question I've been wrapping up with people, and I like to wrap up with questions that people can't possibly be prepared for.
Oh, good. Is like my career. Go.
Well, and the question I always ask, I started off asking everybody was, what's your favorite Pokemon? But I realized that question only gives you so much insight into a person's personality. So if you were stuck in traffic, what is the one record you could listen to for the rest of your life?
Oh, wow. Okay. Honestly, it is probably the Some Kind of Wonderful soundtrack. From 1989.
Okay.
William Shatner's
strong answer.
Get a Life is really strong, and weirdly, because it's not a great movie, the Daredevil soundtrack is really good. But no, Some Kind of Wonderful is just absolutely listenable from top to bottom.
Okay.
And,
awesome.
And I like having a soundtrack because it's not all the same artist.
Not many people think that way, and I like that approach, because now I'm rethinking my own answer and going, is it the Guardians soundtrack? Guardians of the Galaxy, because you get some great, across the board.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You're making me reconsider my life choices here, Tom.
I've always liked soundtracks better because it's not always just one type of music. You can get quite the array of things.
Yeah, and I love ones like the Back to the Future soundtrack that will have a bunch of songs and then the anthem.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Or I was just thinking, man, Disney had all those Phil Collins records that are actually soundtracks.
Oh yeah.
Those would be good.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Jenna, do you have any more questions for Tom?
Now it's stuck in my head. Don't do this to me. What's wrong with you? Come on.
If she's gonna do that, I'm gonna make you pick a favorite pony.
My favorite pony?
Yes. What's your favorite pony?
Yeah.
It changes. Based on the one that I'm writing. Honestly, it is currently Pinkie Pie because I get to write a lot of the Pinkie Pie cheese sandwich relationship stuff.
Yes.
I like Zakora a lot for about 3 pages, but she rhymes everything.
Yeah.
And that gets old real quick. Mm-hmm. But yeah, right now it's Pinkie Pie and cheese sandwich.
Have you seen so there's this person on YouTube who made their own videos of a pony called Flufflepuff. She's an earth pony. She's all fluffy. And she and Queen Chrysalis end up together. And it's great. She doesn't talk at all.
Okay.
She just makes noises like, wee! And you're just like, what kind of magic are you? But yeah, definitely, if you like Pinkie Pie, you should definitely check out Flufflepuff.
I will do that.
Like 2-minute episodes of just her throwing a taco at Chrysalis and Chrysalis being like, why?
I wrote a Pinkie Pie joke that Hasbro loved and immediately cut from the script. There's a 3-parter that I did where all the ponies turn evil. All the main 6 turn evil. They become different supervillains. And Pinkie Pie becomes the Joker, obviously. And she is dodging Nightmare Moon, who's like throwing energy blasts at her. And Pinkie Pie says, miss me, now you gotta kiss me. Oh, that will start a whole new fandom. And Hasbro said, we love this line, cut it immediately. I can't believe you wrote that. I think was the exact
come on. They left it on that. Has everybody seen the last episode? Don't care. I'm going to talk about it. So they in my opinion, the way they left it was that Applejack and Rainbow Dash are a couple. Like, they're like, I could have helped you. And she's like, but you're so slow. And it's like, they're already living together on the farm. So I don't know why they became rude.
I think it's more writing it 5 years. Like you can do a lot of stuff in your finale that you can burn a couple bridges on the way out on that one.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Did Kyle just like, okay.
I just got a little bit yelled at. So I had to reposition. I was sitting in a way that's not conducive to healing. Whatever. Anyhow, so one more time, at Tom, it's
At
Tom
Tom
Zahler.
Zahler.
Make sure you put the H in. If you search it without the H, you find the wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Tom, for being here. Thank you for being funny when I couldn't be, because my brain just reset every time.
Can't stop the signal.
Hey, and I look forward to seeing you in New York and probably a couple other places before the year's over. So we'll see you very soon, my friend.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, everybody. This will continue momentarily. We have Adam Freeman. We have Adam Freeman coming on. Adam is, like me, someone who has had a lot of jobs in the industry. He wrote them all out earlier, and it's a big wall of text that I'm very excited to talk to you about. So we'll be back in just a couple minutes here on The Experience. Yeah, stick with us. Jenna's going to try and recover. Welcome back. What's up, the internet? I'm Kyle. We are still here. This is the last segment of our posted anniversary here on The Experience, which is our 6-month anniversary or 6-month celebration. For those of you who are going, what is he talking about? Your 1-year anniversary is your paper anniversary. If you're not quite there yet, you're only halfway there. You just have a small piece of paper, which is where the joke comes from. I promise. So it's legally different, though, than the thing that's trademarked by 3M. So I'm going to bring back in my co-compatriot Jenna, who has been with me all weekend and is tired of that joke, I'm certain.
It's funnier every time.
Well, you just get punchier. And we are joined now by someone who I admire tremendously and have wanted to talk to like this for a really long time, because I really love listening to this person talk about comics. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Adam Freeman, who Adam, what would you call yourself? You're kind of like me. You're kind of like a gypsy in the industry. You've just been around forever.
Yeah, sure.
And do a bunch of
journeyman.
Stuff, right?
I think I like journeyman. That's good. I don't know. I've been doing this for a long time. Long time. I think we're coming up on 27 years of being connected to selling comics or involved in the comics industry in one form or fashion. So, yeah, I don't know. You can't get rid of me. What is that? I mean, that's like a pest, I suppose. Like, I don't know. Hang on, I just want to stop you there. It's been a long weekend. I have not been able to watch as much as I wanted to, but I have to ask, is this like some sort of like telethon where you have to keep going and like you're having some sort of medical intervention in the middle of it to make sure that you like survive it to get through it? I'm like, the end? You could have quit before me, man. I mean, like, no one would have noticed. No one knows who I am. It's totally fine.
I would have noticed.
What the hell, Kyle? What is going on?
No, I'm okay. So what's interesting is you started asking that question just as my internet that I've been using all weekend to do this gave up the ghost. So I had to switch internet connections at the right time. So I had a little bit of a health scare this week. I'm currently locked up. I don't know what you'd call it. I can't leave this building. Because
are you in the hospital?
I've got yes.
Don't worry. I already yelled at him twice this week.
But I'm here by choice at this point. Like,
you know what the thing about Post-it notes is that they're disposable. You couldn't toss this out and said I had to be in the hospital. All right, whatever. I'm not going to make your life choices. No, it's fine.
No, I knew
that's
Thursday
why I'm here, though.
I knew Thursday that we were going to be good to go for the show.
Okay.
Because at this point, I'm literally here because I won't let them discharge me.
Fair. All right.
So
let's get it done, man. I want to get this in before your afternoon pudding shows up, and because that's going to be a distraction. Jello, right?
Jello.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's not name brand. I'm not ordering the pudding. It's real bad. So let's start here. You've been a retailer.
Yes.
You've worked for 5 publishers.
I mean, at this point, you count all the freelance jobs I've had. You count all of the clients that we've had at Prana. I think we're coming up on 24 publishers I have worked with or for full time. The full time ones are a smaller list. I started off with Fantagraphics back in the 90s, working as a kind of a regional sales guy. And my first real publishing job was with Top Cow. Then it was Valiant, and now I guess Bad Idea, but alongside my business of Prana DM. So yeah, I've been there. But on top of that, I have to list them alphabetically at this point because they're just there's too many.
The list of people you haven't worked with is shorter.
It's getting there. Yeah. I just go through the previous catalog and got it, need it, got it. Yeah.
Right, it's true. So
I've never made that joke before. I'm kind of proud of that one. That one's
I love it. Yeah, you should use that one all the time. It's the previous catalog is just like your little black book.
Exactly. Yeah.
So for those who aren't aware, explain to people what Prana is and what you do with Prana.
So Prana is my company. It is a sales and marketing company. We do a lot of consulting, but we also do other services. For instance, we'll handle all of the exclusive covers for Aftershock. We do some stuff in and with my work with Bad Idea. We do, we have a consulting and business development with other clients. Many of our clients are on an NDA, so we don't really talk about them in public. We kind of work with them behind the scenes. But yeah, we work with a number of different people, got a small, dedicated, wonderful team that I work with, and we do our best to really focus. Most of our focus is on the direct market, Prana Direct Market Solutions. Is those comic shops, right? Those somewhere between 1,800 and 3,000 comic shops that there are in the world. We work with those. We know pretty much everything there is to know about working with comic shops. And so anybody who needs help, reaching them or understanding them or, kind of making a foothold in this market, we're able to help with those. So, yeah, I think that covers everything that we do with Prana. Yeah.
Right. And I think what I love about Prana, and this is why I say I admire you, is because Prana is the kind of what you do with Prana, you do direct with the direct market, is what I want to do with what I do, but I want to let everybody do this kind of stuff, like the online video, building your brand kind of outreachy stuff. And you really work on the nuts and bolts of how to be good at your job, and how to be successful in that regard.
I think I love comics retailers. I was a retailer myself for 17 years or so, and 10 of those as an owner operator at Brave New World Comics in Santa Clarita, California, which is still open. A man named Andy Legal, who I actually worked with at Valiant, now owns it. It's a weird, incestuous little circle. And we, I fell in love with these people, this community of entrepreneurs who are out there every day, creating a space for people like us, right? Creating a space for people who love this pop culture that we are all fascinated with. And it's that creation of the space, the place to be, that third place, that is famously talked about, that I find to be worthwhile and worth supporting and worth getting to know and worth investing in. And it is, in many ways, it is the thing. Comics retailers are the reason that there are Marvel movies now, right? They kept comics alive during a period when the rest of the world didn't really care. They were out there banging the drum evangelically, making sure that people were reading comics. And so there was a period that comics really should have died in the US, right? There are countries where there aren't really a lot of comic books. There are countries that comic books only really set in once everybody had digital devices, and that was their form of distribution. Comics retailers kept American comic books alive, and that's why we have them today, and that's why superheroes have taken over pop culture. So I think that there is this beautiful piece that we need to keep alive and understand. I can do that. I can do that for another hour if you want. If you want to go and
no,
get your vitals taken or something, you go right ahead.
I was digesting all of that. Yeah, Jenna, do you have questions?
I have some very important questions, but they sound not important after all that.
No, please, let's hear it. Go. What do you got?
So, what has inspired you to keep going on the path that you are going? Or changing the path that you have been changing? Like, what has been your gumption?
Well, my landlord wants to get paid. But
bills, very good.
Aside from that, I would say that there's, this guy. And,
hello.
I often joke that there's a certain amount of institutional knowledge that once you have it, you're not allowed to leave. And that's why you see people in comics go from one job to the next, is that there's this institutional knowledge that we hold on to tightly and we value. There are, not a lot of people who do what I do. Not a lot of people who care about this as much as I've cared about it. So it has always been, it's been easy for me to pivot and move. I've been laid off. I've been, let's say, fired. I think there have been times where it was obvious to me and my employer that it was time for us to just part ways.
It was time for a separation.
What's that?
I know that.
It was time for a separation.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We have reached a point in our lives where our paths have diverged. Yes. So, I've gone through all of those sort of iterations and pivoted and moved. And in many ways, that's part of why I wanted to build Prana, was because it allows me to work with a lot of different kinds of people, and to do that. So I think the answer to what inspires me is really those shops, and just getting to, I like to tinker. I think that I really love understanding how systems work so that you can break them or fix them or just find a loophole. One of the things that piece of feedback I'm most proud of is at Valiant, we had this brand manager at Diamond. So the brand manager is the person who works at Diamond who works with the publisher. And we had this brand manager who said, Valiant, they're like the velociraptors of publishers. They're just always testing the fence, and they're going to find a hole, and they're going to exploit that hole. That's the stuff I like to do, and I know comics about as well as I know anything. So it's fun to find those still. Yeah.
And it's interesting that in your current position, you found the hole and are exploiting the hole, and it's causing so much uproar and so much fun for me. And I love every second.
You're enjoying it. There are days when I
know
don't
it's been nightmarish for you.
So good.
But it's what I think is great is that it's about time that someone has upset the apple cart, because it's going to force everybody else to pick up the apples and figure out how to do it again.
When they approached me about working, I'm assuming we're pivoting to Bad Idea here. So when they approached me about working with Bad Idea, I was, and for those of you who don't know, Bad Idea is a company that was founded by Dinesh Shamdasani and Warren Simons, two guys I worked with at Valiant. And they went off and decided, they said, what does it look like if you create a comic book publisher where you only do the work that you're proud of, right? So when you're working in a big company like, or a company that wants to be big, like you want to be Marvel 2.0, you add all of these things that you want it to be, right? You want to sell trade paperbacks into libraries. You want to try and crack Walmart. You want to make sure your digital is happening. You want to have licensing. You want to have all of these things that makes you look like a big company and hopefully leads to growth and profit and money rains down from heaven. The problem with that is that you end up with a lot of people in desks, and you end up having to publish a lot of books in order to keep those people in their desks. And some of them, maybe the books are you're not so proud of, but man, they kept people at their desks. So they came and said, what does it look like if we create a publishing company where we don't have to do that, where we only publish 1 or 2 books a month that we like, the ones that are done, the ones that are finished and everybody's proud of. And so we did. We ended up building a company that would have been successful with 50 stores, right? Because we wanted to work directly with the stores, because all of the decisions that we made were kind of like cobbled onto that. If you want to only have 1 or 2 titles a month, weirdly, indirectly, that means no digital. That means no trade paperbacks. That means no alternative covers, no variant covers, because that all requires extra people at desks. So we wanted to keep it super tight, and we wanted to make sure that we were doing work that we were proud of. And so everything we built, the rules, the destination stores, the crazy programs, all of it was about that. And so I think that answered the question. I don't remember the question.
No, it did.
I absolutely love, me and my husband have been following Dinesh since his Valiant days. We literally bought every book from Valiant that when he was in charge. So when he announced, Bad Idea, I went to Miss Jen's store, and I was like, and this is before I worked there. I was like, look, everything he does, we need it, please. And then I started working there, and then the book started coming out, and it was I see both sides of it though, where it's like some customers aren't very happy with us. Because the next idea person who yells at me, I'm probably going to jail. monthly thing. That's a monthly thing. And then, but
feel free to like just absorb that and then like, just like take it as a battery and then pick up the phone and call me and then expel it all out because that's what everybody else does.
But at the same time, I love the books. We have so many people that come in, pick up the books. We love them. And it's just, it's only those like 1 or 2 people a month that are like, Well,
the thing is, I mean, we're going to talk about, what our philosophy with working with the retailers has really been about, we want to create the best possible product. And I believe we're doing that.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
Right. I believe that our books stand against everything else on the shelves. I know that our print quality stands well above and beyond.
That's not the problem, though. The problem is this one dude, we have a list of people who prepaid for certain things.
Yeah.
And this one dude's like, oh, I didn't pick mine up. And I'm like, I put a check mark by your name. So you did pick yours up. You're not getting another one. Please leave. Like, you don't understand. I grew up in an alley across the street from a prison and bikers at biker rallies every single weekend.
I
think the key is to get it tattooed somewhere on you that Karens are going to Karen. All we did was find the Karens.
You know what? We are, we have a super passionate fan base.
Yes.
And we have set up rules that the stores are agreed to follow in order to interact with them, right?
Yes.
Right? We did those things.
I hand it to you. I put a check mark. You don't get another one.
Yeah.
That is your one.
One per customer. I know. And, and then that's, I mean, again, all of those rules go back to, I can draw you a line from all of the rules that we're doing, that we have created to that simple concept of just 2 titles a month that we're proud of. And, I can do it like, how does that affect the cost of tea in China? Was this game we played in as kids. I can do that with everything that we've done. It all kind of comes back to that idea. How do we just focus on those 2 books? And I feel your pain, and I know that there's some super passionate people out there who want to make that difficult. That has never been the goal, but it's always. I'll be honest, it's kind of fun when we see the uproar over putting out a comic book.
I love everything else about it. I really do. As a customer, everything. It's just, and then the one time during, I think it was a freeze that we had, our random freeze out of nowhere when books were delayed 2 weeks. I'm in Houston. I'm in South Texas. Like,
I'm sorry. Ooh.
And our books were delayed. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks. And people were calling the store every day. Is my book in? Is my book in? And we have this thing where we called you. We called you when they come in. We called you.
Okay. I will say that among the things I'm proud of is I know for certain that there's no publisher in the market who's giving retailers a better markup. And I know that we are punching well above our weight as far as sending customers to you to pick these books up, right?
You love
it. But some of them are very passionate.
Oh, very. I'm usually the passionate one, but
all right. So we can go down this rabbit hole of pissing off Karens all day. But
I'm so good at it.
Let's bring it back. Let's bring it back to the goal here, which is not talking about Karens.
Sorry. No, I wanted to talk about how much I love the books.
Yes.
I literally have every single one. That is coming out to date. I'm on the list for anything ever to come out for it.
As someone who has had, I believe, I can say this truly. You said you wanted everything that had Dinesh's name in it. I believe that I can tell you my name has been in every comic that Dinesh's name has been in. So
I have all of your stuff too. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
and my husband absolutely adores. He knows the names of every single person for every single book, and I'm like,
awesome.
Okay, I have a lot more other.
What's your husband's name?
Jay Burns.
Jay Burns. Got it. All right, Jay Burns. Thank you, man.
So
I'll make sure he gets up.
Adam, do you remember your first local comic shop experience?
Yeah. My
do you remember
first
the shop, and is it still there?
No, it is not still there, but it was owned by a man that I would later see as a model, even a mentor. He actually did act as a mentor for me. You're in Houston, right? I grew up in Fort Worth, Texas.
Ooh, okay.
And at the Ridge, right near the Ridgemar Mall, was a comic shop. His name escapes me right this second. But it was co-owned by one Bob Wayne, who was for many, many years did essentially my job, but for DC Comics. Many, actually several decades. So wow. He was one of those people who kind of set up the idea that what I do is a career, right? So he has been and is a huge influence on our family. My oldest son calls him Uncle Bobby. So.
Aww. Yeah. Was that the one that was running by earlier?
What's that?
Was that the kiddo that was running by earlier?
No. That's the youngest. Yeah, there's 10 years between them. So yeah.
Wow. I can't say anything. I'm the oldest of 6. I'm in my 30s, and my youngest sister is like 17. So.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. Yeah,
So different ages. It's got to make it work one way or another, right?
Right.
Oh.
But yes, I do remember it, and I do remember I think I ended up buying Death in the Family.
Oh.
And now that wasn't my first comic, experience, but it was my first comic shop experience. So yeah, it was Death in the Family #2.
Yeah, one of our things here is we want to highlight local comic shops.
Amen.
Everybody here is a local comic shop person. I was until they decided that I'm not good enough at accounting to be able to keep my store open. So I'm doing a different thing. Everybody else here is a local comic shop person. And so
I also want to say really quickly, my second comic shop was co-owned by a man named Ron Killingsworth, who is now one of the owners of the Collective, also in the DFW area, and they are a Bad Idea destination store. So
I love that name.
Ron is one of those guys that's super active, like in the retailer groups, and he's one of those guys that when Ron put something up, I always kind of read it and wrote it down and was like, how can I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's true.
He's been at it essentially my whole life. So, that's got to be something.
So what about your local comic shop experience led you to wanting to be a retailer, and then when that was no longer a thing, wanting to work with the insane people that own comic shops?
Yes. Hey,
that is a path, right? Okay. So let's see if I can follow that path. So I was a comics fan at that point, and then once I finally, I'd been working since I was like 14, but right around the time when I was about 17 or so, it was the kind of cycle of the boom was beginning, right? We're talking late 80s, early 90s at this point. I'm a very old man. I know I don't look it.
Well, I feel kind of bad. I don't fit in with the facial hair and baldness, man.
Yeah. So you gotta. I think by the way, you could pull it off. You have the face for it if you wanted to shave that and just tape it there. Anyway, so let's see. My comics fandom kind of grew and grew and grew. I found a local comic shop that a buddy gave me a reference. I was getting a big discount, and I bought a bunch of books because I had, I was a teenager with no responsibilities. And I ended up being moved for the job that I was working in Texas. I got a job doing old time photo studios. I was managing them and helping build them out and do this stuff because I had some contractor experience, and moved to California where I helped open a studio at Magic Mountain, and immediately upon moving there, found the grocery store and the comic shop, which were a block away from each other. And that comic shop was Brave New World, which I ended up buying a number of years later. But it was owned by a man named Wade Wysinski, who started it, and Wade is now works in animation and is one of the, I think, producers of the Owl House series. If you guys have watched that, it's a big favorite around the house. Anyway, I've always been even to this day, if I'm not growing, it doesn't matter how much money I'm making, right? I just it's time to go. I wasn't growing in that studio. And I remember saying to my then girlfriend, my now ex-wife, I think I'm ready to be done at the Old Time Photo Studio thing. And that week on that Wednesday, I went in to pick up my stuff. And the guy who was running the counter, a man named AJ Jyothkumar, who is actually a working artist, you can look up his stuff in comics. He said, "Hey, you want a job?" So it was really as simple as that. It was the early 90s and comic shops were booming. And this one store that Wade and his dad started grew out to 3 stores, and they needed help. And I had management experience. Then the late 90s happened, and the bust of the 90s popped. That bubble popped. And early 2000, my now ex-wife was then wife, and I sold a house, did really well with it, and we used some of that money to buy Brave New World. Did that for 10 years, and during that period, I was like you. I was this was early early 2000s, and we started seeing the Delphi CBIA was up and running. Comic Book Industry Alliance, I think it was just a message board. The Delphi platform had the Warren Ellis Forum, and it had a few other really influential sort of places where people who were making comics kind of coalesced. CBIA was super active. Got to know all the retailers through there. I was a loudmouth. Can I say asshole? I was horrible. I was really the worst. But like many loudmouth assholes after me, I got noticed. And so I became sort of a fixture in comics and accidentally named myself ATOM ! That's a dumb story, but that stuck with me throughout. And I think because I got to know that when 2010, there was a recession in 2008. By 2010, Brave New World was really in trouble, and I needed to get a job. My partner, ex-wife now, was running Brave New World, and I decided to go out and see what I could find. And Top Cow hired me because I knew comics. I was always curious. I was always trying to get to know how the system worked. And so they hired me, and it's been kind of just from there. It's just been one step after the next. I haven't actually talked to an HR person or a recruiter ever. I just kind of keep pivoting. I just, yeah.
That's true. When I was in college, I got a job at a local radio station here in town because I knew how to drive the stick shift van. And I wasn't old enough to drink, so that everybody who worked for the station could go to the parties, and Kyle could bring the van.
Nice. That's good, man. You brought value.
Right, but that transitioned into, oh, Kyle also knows music. Well, let's put him on the air. Oh, Kyle also has a business back, he's studying business in school. We can put him in the business department.
Yeah.
And so I learned every aspect of the broadcasting business, and parlayed that into they stole me away to go to CBS, and then ABC stole me away to go to ESPN. So as people are always calling me, you want a job? And then when I realized I didn't want to do that anymore, I bought the comic shop I shopped at. I needed something to do.
Right. And you know what? That's what I love about comics retail, especially, is that I can name the number of stores, and you probably guess who they are, where they started it because they thought it was a good business opportunity, right? They thought they were going to make money here, So they didn't know anything about comics. They just thought, okay, this is a weekly product that is going to bring people in. We'll learn as we go. I can name them, and honestly, some of the most successful ones you would imagine. But majority of the stores, and part of the reason why they are just have such longevity is because they're just run by these crazy passionate people who just work their bodies to death and will do everything they can to get you that one comic book. And right. I think that says wonders about direct market. And honestly, part of the reason why the direct market continues on to this day, when there was just this, online retailers like Amazon and going digital media has just ravaged every other brick and mortar retail. Every other brick and mortar retail is on the ropes. Comics is one of the few outliers where you have not seen a change in the count of number of stores for the last, COVID changed this. I'm trying to actually figure out how much it changed this, but up until COVID, there had not been a change up or down 4%, the number of stores for the last 15 years.
Crazy.
It's insane.
And it was funny because I ended up falling into this world the same way. Like, I was working in security in downtown and I got stabbed, so it was time for me to walk away. And then it was just a needle. It was fine. It was just a needle.
Yeah, and that happens to all of us.
And then I started working in the mall right here in the Woodlands at a very certain gaming store that people don't talk about. And I went in almost every single day. I would get off from my job and I would go into Space Cadets and I'd just sit there hugging the gumball machine that she has that looks like a rocket. And I'd be like, okay, I'm home now. It's okay. Nobody's going to spit on me again. It's okay. And then I would go buy stuff and I would sit there for hours just talking. And then finally they were like, hey, do you want to work here? And I was like, can I please? I don't want to go back there. Don't make me
and it's funny is I think most people who work in comic shops get hired the same way you do. I'm here. I love it. I'm passionate. And it's really, honestly, it tends up screwing them because they end up going from having a great customer to somebody who gets the employee discount. But that's how they staff their stores.
Yeah.
And then the way most publishers staff themselves is by hiring from people they meet at the stores. Yeah. So it really is this sort of people who are passionate are drawn to these epicenters, these cultural epicenters in their different communities, and then bubble their way up. If you're any good, you're stuck around. You stick around.
And then it was after almost a year of working with Miss Jen, the experience started, and she was like, Kyle, this is Jenna. And he's like, Jenna, do you want to do stuff?
Right.
I'm pretty
Jenna,
sure that's what he sounded.
Social media.
Yeah.
Social media.
So I've had to keep up with all the different social medias. So I have roughly 17 nieces and nephews, ranging from the age of 15 to 2. And the only way they communicate is never texting, never calling. It's some sort of social media platform. One only does TikTok, one only does Instagram, one only does this. And so I've had to
young people.
I've had to adapt to that because they like to come to my house once or twice a month. I have, almost every other weekend, I have different amounts of those kids here. And so, to figure out how to keep up with all of my nieces and nephews and my brothers and sisters is
social media.
And so they were like, you're good at it. Do it. And I was like, oh, okay. Are you going to give me money?
Not always the way.
Then,
right.
You can get money.
Behind the scenes on all our shows. And so they were like, you're good talking, go. And I was like, okay.
Now you have to talk an entire weekend while Kyle goes and gets a CAT scan.
No, that hasn't happened. But that's the interesting thing, right? Is the pivot in the industry, right? The pivot is the thing. It's I made a bad business decision 8 months prior to a global pandemic that put me in a position where I could keep my store open if I moved twice in 8 months, or I could close my store, or I could buy a building at the beginning of a global pandemic and definitely have to close my store.
Oh, goodness.
Right.
So what'd you end up doing?
I closed the store and paid off the lease, so I didn't have to buy the building, and transition to any retailer out there who needs help getting online.
Right?
They know what, I'm here.
Did I lose them or do you lose me? All right.
No, you're good. I'm here. It's
okay. Good.
I don't know, but it's it's that pivot. It's the changing direction, but staying in the game.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the key is that it's part of why publishers last is that the pivot. I mean, you see like I immediately jumps to mind is Dark Horse is constantly pivoting their product mix. Like they're always tinkering. They're always playing. In many ways, Bad Idea is the same way. Like we're always still testing the fence and we're still coming up with new ways to, tinker and play. Valiant was the same way. Like everybody I've worked with, I think part of the reason why they value me is because I am a pivoter. I'm all right, that didn't work. Okay, we'll try this. Okay, when that didn't work, all right. Well, hey, there was this one piece. Do you remember when we did that and it didn't quite work? Let's take that out of there and plug it in over here. I mean, that's the shit that that's what makes it interesting, and that's what that does creates value, right? Is that, and is what ends up creating systems.
Yeah, it's true. So one of the things that I've heard you speak on, and it really inspired me, is you have a unique perspective on the way the future of this industry should kind of progress. You have, in the sense that, yes, I've heard you, and here's what I mean. In the way that if we do these things, we're going to be better. These are the mistakes that you're seeing people make. Like, because of your positioning, you get to see a lot of the mistakes people make and the things they can do to be better.
Yeah.
Looking at that now, what are you seeing like as some of the stuff that's happening as we're coming back from a pandemic, as we're getting our feet underneath us, that the retailers out there and the fans who are watching should know are going to be things that we have to deal with?
Well, so again, I think the resilience of the direct market, and part of the reason why it has been so resilient, even during a global pandemic that should have put brick and mortar stores out of business. I think the resilience of it is that pivot. It's that ability to say, okay, there's got to be something here that we can take advantage of. And I know that there are many stores that are suffering, but I also know that like more than half of the stores I talk to are like saying, having an amazing year. They're doing incredibly well. Collectibles took off during the pandemic because everybody was home and shopping. You guys created obviously an early model that a lot of people have taken and run with of this interaction, this experience of selling things live through video. Comic shops sell them, the staff, the people behind it, the retailers themselves, almost more than they sell the product, right? You go, why is your local comic shop what it is? Well, yours is because of Miss Jen, right? Yeah. And the people that are drawn to Miss Jen and their personalities, right? Those are the people that kept you coming back. It wasn't, it might be what Wolverine is doing this month, but probably not, right?
No, there's like 6 comic book stores all within 20 miles here, and everybody loves to come to Miss Jen's store because of the energy that we just sort of give off. And at least that's how I always felt it.
And a result of that, you've been able to use that energy through a new platform, through a new medium. And you're still selling the same product, which is, comics, but you're also selling yourselves, right? And you do that incredibly well. So you saw stores pivoting towards that. You saw them creating new avenues for selling the same product. And you saw the stores that were really intensely building what we call the long tail, like this big, broad inventory. You saw them do really well because a lot of those things started spiking in value while people were at home and getting super nerdy about their collections. So, we saw all of those things. So what does that look like for the future? Again, I don't know. But what I do know is I know that there are some best practices. And then one of the things that I have been, maybe I think part of what you're talking about, one of the things that I really focus on, both in the consulting and anytime I'm talking to stores and retailers, is the difference between metrics and feedback. Just to put the definition on those two things, right? Feedback is you talking to your customers, them saying, I want such and such, right? Metrics is how do they actually act, right? So they might say one thing and do another. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that retailers are the worst offenders at this, of saying they want one thing, but doing another thing every single time. And so you have to be real careful with, you don't want to, I don't mean this as a disrespect. I don't mean this as don't listen to them. What I mean is you have to listen to them with that filter of understanding what the metrics are. And so what we can see, how we see that for retailers to survive whatever is next. And I hope you're right. I hope we're coming back from COVID. I personally have my own fears about this. I think that the Delta variant is scary, and I think the Lambda variant is not looking much better, right? So I think it's still a crapshoot of whether or not I'm going to New York Comic Con and I can ride my bike to the Javits. Okay, so I can tell you that those things are real, but I can also tell you with absolute certainty that the direct market is going to not only survive whatever's next, but also thrive because of that passion, because of that pivot. And I think that the stores that are going to thrive the best, the ones that are going to exceed all other expectations, are the ones who know their numbers and focus on the metrics and look for, I have this theory, you look for the question in the metrics, you look for the answer in the feedback. So I can say, if somebody comes to me and says, your store has your aisles are too narrow, but my sales are continually increasing, my aisles might be just fine. If, however, I see that this one section is not doing well and it's got a very narrow aisle, maybe that feedback says, well, maybe if I just expand that aisle, the sales will go up. And if they do, that is the answer. So I got the answer from the feedback, but I had the question from the metric. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've tried a number of ways of presenting that idea. So yeah, I think that those are the stores that are going to do really well, and the ones that they're all pivoters. They're all hustlers. Yeah. They're gonna figure their way out.
The best thing is to sell the experience of selling all the comics and the love that we all have.
Amen. It's about experience. It's not about data. We have data. If data was the thing that was stopping us, we would all be billionaires with six-pack abs, right? Right? Yeah. It's not about data. It's not about selection, because if it were, I can pull out my phone and have anything I want in the world at my house in 2 days, and just using an app. Yeah. It's about the experience. It's about interacting with those people. It's about the relationship that I have with that retailer. It's about the relationship I have with the staff. It's about how I feel when I'm in that space, or when I even think about that space, right? When I'm watching video at home and I think about being in that place. That's what drives this.
Yeah.
It's super true. And I've used your metrics versus feedback analogy, and I boiled it down for somebody to know where your numbers are. If you don't know where your numbers are, you can't ask the questions about how do you make your numbers better.
Yeah.
What's actually happening, and then you can say, okay, why isn't this doing better? And you can see what you're doing with that thing. So
math is the language of the world. It's the language of science. It's the language of business. Know the math, know the numbers, you understand those things.
And it took me going out of business because I couldn't afford to stay afloat during a pandemic to learn the math.
I see Miss Jen's game now. So she hired me, and I have a degree in applied mathematics, and our newest hire is getting her degree in physics. Oh my goodness. So she's hiring people who know math. That's her game. I see now.
Hey, Kyle, I have to tell you, man, part of the reason that the Brave New World did not do well after that recession is because I did not keep a tight enough rein on the numbers. I did not keep a tight enough rein on the math. If I look back, that was my failure, was that I didn't. Yeah. It wasn't that I can't sell. It was just accounting.
Right. It took. Right. The experience taught me the math. So when I go back to that, I'll know. And that's the big part of it. So we have like 15 minutes left, and this has been an informative and heavy conversation. So it's time for some fun questions.
Oh boy, let's hit it,
Jenna.
So the most important question of the whole day. I've asked everybody this. Nobody has given me the same answer. Everybody's giving me different answers. So, what would be the last pie you would ever eat? Like, it's pie, and it's your flavor, and it's the last one ever. What flavor is it?
Oh. Man.
Yes.
I actually once had a birthday where it was a potluck, but you could only bring pie.
Yes.
And we had a macaroni and cheese pie. We had like a potato pie. We had I love pie.
Yeah. We actually have a house of pie right around the corner of my house. So yes.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
24 hours a day.
You say it, and honestly, like if you put like a gun to my head, this is your last day. The first thing that popped to mind was pecan.
Yes, thank you. Yes. Everybody has said everything else, and I'm like, somebody say no.
Getting that goop underneath the layer of pecans, right, man, is hard. But when you do, it's just divine.
We had somebody earlier say pecan, but I don't know what a pecan is. I know what a pecan is.
That's regional. I'll give them that. That's fine.
But yes, the most important question of the day.
Yeah.
What else you got? Come on, rapid fire, hit me.
If you were stuck in traffic for the rest of your life, and the CD was stuck in the CD player, what CD would you want it to be?
I am discovered this. We just did a long 5-week road trip where we went down south to see my family and Gabby's family. We went through Florida, we went through New Orleans, we went through Texas, and in it we got to play a lot of music, and I was reminded that I can do from start to finish, note to note, the entire They Might Be Giants Flood album. I could do a one-man show with just this thing. I'm pretty sure, like acoustically, I'm Bobby McFerrin, like just me and a microphone. I could do the whole album. I think that answers. Sure, let's go with that one.
I saw them play Flood end to end at Gen Con, and it was just a sea of nerds having this like religious experience. It was amazing.
Just blissed out. It must be like a Pentecostal like church, like people speaking in tongues. It's filled with the Holy Spirit. I can only imagine.
So here's a question I've been asking everybody. Okay. We haven't quite got a chance to. What is your favorite project that you have worked on?
Oh God.
Yes.
The one I'm working on right now. The next one. No, that's not it. This is the one I had the idea for last night that kept me up till 2 a.m. That's my favorite project. It's always the next one. It's always the next one. There are a number of things I'm proud of. Like I said, I for the purposes of this, I listed out every job I've had and the awards and everything. And it was a nice moment of thinking, like some people, I use the analogy when I wrote about it. Some people build their careers like you would build a house. Like they just put one block and another block and another block. They just keep climbing this ladder. 2 metaphors, I know, but and they build things up around them. I haven't. I've just kind of navigated through this river and spun. Been pulled under and swam down the rapids.
River like you do here in Texas. Get on the inner tube and just float.
Yeah, I'm a tuber.
Ironically,
that's what I am.
Right. Ironically, like I have a lot of friends who've climbed the corporate ladder, and I like to say, my friends climb the corporate ladder. I go down the corporate water slide. So,
I just keep falling into things. Like, there we go.
Right.
Hi.
Yeah.
Right. So,
every single one of my jobs, and I've worked in every industry there is, I've just tripped into. My friends have been like, you want to work with us? And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah,
hey, here's a major law firm. You want to be the secretary for the head of the lawyers, and I'm
Yes,
like,
I do.
okay. I think the reason they hired me was because I could keep like the new partners in line. Like they'd be like, this is their first day. They come in yelling to one of the other secretaries, making her cry or calling her dumb or something. And I would be the one that would walk up, toss my shoes, and be like, "Say it to me.
Let's go.
Say it to me.
I'm gonna take off my jewels, taking out my. Let's go. Pulling off my nails. Let's do it.
Right.
I would show them the paperwork that they didn't fill out right and say, "See, you can't even do your job. Time for you to go."
Bring it.
Yeah. All right. So to end on a real note here, if you could give people out there watching who are in the industry or who want to be in the industry one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would say, I've been approached by a number of people who wanted, come to me and say, how do I get your job? Right. And that always sounds threatening, but it's really, it's kind of nice. So I've gone through this a couple times, and I struggle, right? I think it was Mark Waid who once said, how do you break into comics is a hard question to answer, because every time we break in, we like go back. Every time we find a hole in the wall, we go back in and mend it before somebody else finds it, right? But I don't think it's like, I think it's that institutional knowledge I'm talking about earlier. I think curiosity is the number one attribute. And to my mind, like, curiosity is what makes you a decent human, is this like need to understand, need to take it apart, need to fill it. And I think if you have that curiosity, if you're always trying to learn and you're always, getting next to people that you can learn from and gathering those people together and doing your best to like get that institutional knowledge that I was talking about earlier, I think at some point comics won't let you go. They just won't, because it needs people who understands how all of the gears work. And that's the career I've built, is understanding how those gears work. So yeah, I would say learn.
I had a teacher in school when I was studying broadcasting that said, once it's in you, it's in you. And once it's in you, it won't go. You can't let it out. Like, it's not like it's bad turkey. You're stuck with it. And I know. The joke
are we learning why you're in the hospital right now, Kyle? Did we learn something right there? No.
No. And what he meant is that no matter how ugly it gets, it's always there. It always comes back. You're always going to have it. And if you lean in, and he would end that by saying, lean into it. If use the knowledge you have to build other people's knowledge, and then they'll pay you for that most of the time.
I mean, I've built a career out of getting to know something that shouldn't exist. Brick and mortar retail should not exist.
Yeah.
Comics retailers, I mean, these are people who sell comic books, mostly to adults, right? Should not exist. Like, and the smart money would have taken my brain and gone into, like, I don't know, film development, maybe. Occasionally I hear that, right? Like, or any other, like, pick something actually practical. I could have been a lawyer, right? But the truth of the matter is that, like, I am all of those experiences. I am that entire river that I tubed down to get here. And I think once you get to a place where you have built up enough river behind you, you're the only person for the job.
Well, all right, guys, we only have a couple of minutes left. Let's see. Where can everybody find you, or where can they buy your stuff? Like, where are you?
That's a great question. I think if you want to buy Bad Idea comics, look at that. There's comments. I just noticed.
We've been slowly going through them through the conversation. So,
so if you want to buy Bad Idea comics, you really should go to whereisbadidea.com. And you can actually say to one of those comic book retailers, hey, I want to subscribe to this. And we send that pre-order information to the retailer, and they can follow up with you. Or you can go to badideacorp.com and find the retailer list. There's about 250 retailers worldwide that are carrying Bad Idea. And be nice. Just be nice. How hard is that? Just be nice.
Let's do this. You want to take this outside? There's an alley outside the store. Let's go.
Do not mess with Jenna. I'm telling you, there's a reason that she already took her nails off. If you want to buy exclusive covers from Aftershock, they're out there. If you want to, like any of the other things that I work on, they're all over the place. Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna put up a graphic that I still have from when I did an event with Amy Chu a while back.
Oh yeah, I love Amy.
Number one rule in comic.
Exactly.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah. Seriously, Bad Idea fans, I get it. We've created a little fun game, right? We created rules. We created a game to play, and sometimes you get super competitive. But be nice to these people. They're the only ones that's making this work for you. Be nice.
Some of us aren't very nice back. If you're mean to me, I'm going to be mean to you back.
I'm not pissing you off, Jenna. No. That's not happening.
No, he's going to leave that for me when I give you more social media work or something. So, Adam, thank you. Thank you for everything, man. Like, thank you for being here. Thank you for talking. Thank you for your insight and for supporting the direct market. Like, we love the direct market here at the Experience. I know you love the direct market. And it's going to be a wild next year. I guarantee it. So hopefully,
I can't wait to see what happens next. It's going to be awesome.
Hopefully I will see you at New York. Even if it's not at the convention, it'll be in the block between Javits and wherever we're going. So,
yeah. You will see me. I'll be the guy in the hazmat suit with the.
Jenna's not going anywhere. If you wanted to see her, I'm right here.
I feel you. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, I may go to New York Comic Con just so I can get a proper slice of pizza.
I feel you.
And then come home.
I got you.
Come to Texas.
I haven't had proper pizza in 18 months.
Darling, come on. Come on. I grew up in Fort Worth. I'm going to tell you right now, you're not going to get a decent slice of pizza in Houston. I'm sorry. Not going to happen. And as you're not going to get decent.
I've been to New York. I know what the pizza tastes like. There's a guy here who moved here from Brooklyn just to open up his pizzeria. And it tastes so close. It's so good.
There's some guy who moved here from the hill country, Texas, who says he gives decent brisket, but that's not the case, darling. That is not the case.
No.
I can agree with that.
No, absolutely. It'll be me. This is New York Comic Con. It'll be me and Howard Chaykin just on a restaurant tour. I think is what will happen. Neither of us will ever see the convention. So, all right.
Convention.
We are out of time for the Post-it anniversary. Stay tuned. Coming up next for a live sale from Fat Jack's Comic Crypt, one of the oldest continually operating direct market stores in the country in Philadelphia. They are up next here on The Experience, followed by a comic show with Aaron Halland of A Comic Shop. You
didn't ask, so I'm just going to say, right period.
I know. Yeah, right period. I love it. We will see everybody next time here on The Experience. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, everybody, from this weekend. Bye, guys.